Uh,
And you have my information if you ever have any questions.
check, 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 check.
Sit right here, and you're on the end. Okay, gotcha. And if you need an extra microphone, you can take the one from. Good afternoon. Oh no, I was just asking if you were, who was going to do it. Are you, Oh, that's great. Wow. Oh my gosh. Oh no, I thought, I just wasn't sure who was doing it. I'll call on you. Yeah. No, oh, you were that person. I saw something come over when you said it.
Lindsay, I'll give the information.
Great. Okay, great. Good afternoon, and welcome to the August meeting of the Board of Higher Education. I will now ask Secretary of the Board, Cindy Deach, to take roll and establish a quorum. Anderson,
Present.
Bergman,
Present.
Carter, Foots Anderson, Gianulius, Hall,
Oh, sorry.
Hayes,
Present.
Hubbard, Carnes, Langer,
Present.
Nandi,
Present.
Richardson Lowry,
Present.
Rivera,
Present.
Ruiz,
Here.
Solario,
Present.
Weissman, Woodward,
Here.
Garate for Gianulius.
Present.
Thank you. A quorum is present. In addition to welcoming all of you, I want to welcome everyone who's viewing this meeting on the web. So we have a virtual audience as well that's watching, so welcome. I want to thank President Doug Baker and his staff for hosting this meeting of the board today. I also want to thank President Baker and his wife, Dr. Stover, for hosting the board at their home last night for dinner. It was an excellent dinner. We really enjoyed the opportunity to dialogue with you in a relaxed setting. It was a great conversation, so we're grateful for that. At this time, I would like to welcome President Baker for a few remarks.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for being here. It's a real honor to have you on campus. I know some of you have said it's been a while since you've been out here, or you haven't been here before, so it's a real pleasure to show you around a little bit. I wanted to talk a little bit about regional collaborations, give you a little feel for what we're doing here at NIU. And we're really working on collaborations across the various sectors in education. It's been driven partially by the Illinois Public Agenda and then my keystone goal of student career success that I brought into the institution. So in terms of Illinois Public Agenda, we're working on increasing educational attainment all along the pipeline, particularly in our segment of it on retention issues. And that's been a major focus for us during the last year and will be going forward. We're working on improving affordability, and we're really looking at the efficiencies inside the institution. This year, we held the total tuition fee, room and board package flat for our incoming students and reduced the room and board for upper class students that are living on campus. So their bills will go down in the coming year. Now that's created some real internal challenges for us, and that means we're gonna have to work a lot on the efficiencies inside the institution. We have many unmet needs now, and so that'll cause us to work very hard on that. We're working on enhancing the workforce by better linking to markets through internships, mentoring, research opportunities, and really trying to look at workforce needs. And we're also working on economic development issues through our entrepreneurship program and our research that we're doing transfer work, tech transfer work on. We're trying to really form collaborations up and down the pipeline, K-12 and community colleges. I show you a map here of the community colleges near DeKalb, and these are community colleges we're trying to reach out to and do much closer partnerships. Here's a few. NIU really values its relationships with community colleges and is increasing areas of collaboration through grant-funded projects, intergovernmental agreements, shared research, and new academic programs that expand access and are financially sustainable. So this is a list of some of them, and I'll go into a few of them here. NIU is engaging faculty and staff at the community colleges on issues that affect all of us, such as improving college and career readiness, rethinking general education at all levels, and tracking attainment of learning outcomes. I want to note in particular a recent effort that we have underway. An IBHE grant to NIU's inspired the development of an action-oriented network of institutions that emphasize regional collaborations to improve student success. The grant's focus is on implementation of the Common Core standards, partly through partnerships among the K-12 and higher education systems. With so many outstanding school districts and community colleges in the region, we decided to explore the possibility for regional action that would advance our shared interests. And it really strikes us that building community across the sectors is going to be critical to our success. We're not going to do it alone. So an extraordinary convening of leaders happened here on June 17th. They included the top executives of 3 educational agencies. Jim Applegate was here for the day. Jim, thank you for spending so much time with us. Presidents or provosts from 7 community colleges, superintendents from 7 school districts, and executives from 3 state education advocacy groups. We found consensus and even enthusiasm for acting at the regional level to improve student success. And this regional network will collaborate to address goals of Illinois' P20 Council, including the 60% of residents earning degrees or professional certificates by 2025. We've come out of that with really 5 groups and found a great deal of consensus on those. On June 17th, the executives identified those 5 areas as alignment of standards, articulation, student support services, development of developmental education, and adult education and non-traditional learners. And those 25 executives of the regional P20 network will return to NIU September 3rd, and we'll have a meeting in this very room to review the short-term progress of the work groups and to provide direction for the next 12 months. So this is really a unique organization, and I think worthy of support. We're making some progress there. And these were the points I just read. Something else we're working on, reverse transfer agreements that allow NIU students to apply NIU credits toward associate degrees. Tom Choice and I were just talking from Kishwaukee a few minutes ago. We signed an agreement in a howling blizzard this winter for reverse articulation, which allows students to leave Kishwaukee before they have their associate's degree, take their remaining classes here and transfer that back to Kishwaukee and receive their degree. And that makes a lot of sense in some degree programs where a student might need to get on, let's say, to an engineering sequence that isn't offered at Kishwaukee Community College, Kishwaukee College. And we don't want them to waste a semester. So come on over, get it, and then they should get credit for having gotten the student almost to the finish line. So really appreciate Tom's support on that. We do that based on intergovernmental agreements and allows students really to make timely progress. We've got that live with Kishwaukee as well as Wabaunsee, Rock Valley, and McHenry, and we're working on a number of others at the same time. The Center for Governmental Studies is a division here at the university that does an amazing amount of work looking at community colleges, state agencies, especially in economic and workforce development and community development. And I just want to recognize Diana Robinson, who's the director, and her staff, and we rely on them a great deal as we do this analysis and are data-driven in what we do. We've been working on a coalition of 5 community colleges north of us, Harper, Elgin Lake, McHenry, and Oakton, and we're working with them on a collaboration on seamless pathways into degrees in business and nursing, and bringing baccalaureate completion closer to where students live, so moving us up there rather than trying to bring all the students down here. And that's very important for many place-bound adults who are working and trying to go to school. So we're really trying to reach out physically at our branch campuses as well as through technology. And I appreciate the leaders at those colleges for their partnership with us. We're working through the final details on those, and I'm very excited about it. We're also trying to reinvigorate the Rock River Region Educational Alliance. 3 of the 4 presidents are new in the last year, and so we're relooking at that area, the Rockford area, working NIU, Rockford, Rock Valley College, and the University of Illinois College of Medicine at Rockford, and looking at the overlapping areas. And you might wonder, do they really have overlapping areas? And they do. One we've been talking a lot about is simulations. For example, simulations in hospitals, where we're training medical students as well as professionals already out there. Simulation labs are very expensive. Is that a place we could come together and partner? NEU's created new options in our AAS graduates, formerly considered to have a terminal degree. In our program, students receive credit for prior technical learning and can choose from a variety of delivery modes to meet their needs. So we're really trying to add on that baccalaureate for those students who start down the AAS path and want to go the next step and get on with their lives and careers at a different level. So we're working hard on those and have some programs in place. NIU offers programs to meet students' needs in almost every career cluster, and the next slide really illustrates the NIU degrees connected to each of those. I actually took that one out because we're getting long. We're also working in Chicago in the K-12 system. The collaborative enables NIU to network with metro areas experts in improving readiness, recruitment, retention, and ultimate career success. And new NIU programs with city colleges are growing out of the contacts made at the collaborative meeting. We really appreciate being part of that. It's the major portion of our population in the state, and having a large education college here on campus, we really feel like there's a great deal of opportunity for us to train the next generation of teachers and do the scholarship that will show us how to be successful there. So I give you a sampling here of the collaborations we're trying to do in K-12 with community colleges, out with employers, and looking at the whole pipeline and trying to create that community with the university so we're relevant in a contemporary university. Thank you for facilitating that work with your grant and with your leadership. It's important work so we can meet our mission and support the state. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. President Baker, we're grateful for your leadership as a president and as an advocate. From the first moment you arrived in Illinois, we've really seen you tackle some challenges, come up with new ideas, and really challenge us on the board. So we're excited to see the impact you've made in your community and really the state as a whole. So thank you. I'm excited to report that the governor recently signed Senate Bill 3441. That's the Higher Education Distance Learning Act, which was initiated by IBHE, signed it at U of I in Champaign. The new law will help boost the quality of distance and online learning programs across Illinois and other states. In addition, the law will allow Illinois to join other members of the Midwestern Higher Education Compact to make distance education courses more accessible to students across state lines, while also making it easier for states to regulate institutions who participate in interstate distance education. We applaud the bill sponsors, Senator Pat McGuire and Representative Bob Pritchard, for their leadership in helping to pass this bill, and the governor for signing it into law and drawing attention to the issue. I believe Representative Bob Pritchard was going to join us today. He may be joining us later, but we are grateful for the opportunity. Dr. Applegate and I met with him yesterday. Also, we were able to meet with Senator Severson, some of our local representatives in this area, and just grateful for their contributions to higher education and the leadership they provide in the legislature. Also joining us today are the proprietary college presidents. Our discussion over lunch was expansive, covering many areas, including the importance of maintaining college affordability and closing the achievement gap in Illinois. We also talked a lot about our adult learners and really establishing goals that we can work on and achieve together. So we look forward to working with the presidents collectively to address many issues impacting the successes of Illinois students. We do have some new faces up here today. Our newest board member, Mary Richardson Lowry, is here. Mary, would you go ahead and introduce yourself, please? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Mary Richardson Laurie. I'm an attorney in the Chicago area, and I've been a contributor in the education space in many different forms for many different years, and a member of many different boards, and I'm happy to be here and look forward to informing the process.
Welcome. We also have our newest student board members with us today, Sean Anderson, a student member, and actually go ahead and introduce yourself as well. Or Sean.
My name is Sean Anderson. I am from Roosevelt University. I am majoring in business management and political science, interested in pursuing a career in public affairs and business law. And I am here to make a pretty good impact for my peers who are students right now all throughout the state. And I look forward to hearing everyone's contribution to the discussion and to try to make some inroads on it.
Thank you. And Tyler Solorio, our non-traditional student member, is new as well.
Hello, everyone. I'm Tyler Solorio, as stated, and I am the non-traditional student member. I'm currently attending DePaul. I'm double majoring in public policy and communication studies. For the non-traditional part, I'm an Army veteran, and I was deployed to Afghanistan in 2011. And I come from a long line of non-traditional students. My mother went to get her master's degree while serving as a single parent. So this is a really important position to me, and I hope that I can succeed in representing all non-traditional students across the board. Thank you.
Thank you and welcome. Before we go any further, I also want to congratulate a State Board of Education board member who is the representative to our board, Dr. Vinnie Hall, for receiving the National Association of State Boards of Education's 2014 Distinguished Service Award. This national award is given annually to State Board of Education members in recognition of outstanding service to public education. Vinnie has been a staunch educational advocate for over 30 years and was extremely active in Illinois' adoption and implementation of the Illinois Learning Standards. She's not here today, but we applaud her for receiving this honor. Turning to the budget, as many of you know, on June 30th, Governor Pat Quinn approved the fiscal year 15 spending plan. Public Act 98-678 provides $2 billion for higher education operations and grants, which represents appropriations at the Board of Higher Ed's Step 1 recommendation and fiscal year 2014 level. Specifically, the fiscal year 15 budget for higher education included $1.2 billion for public universities, $294 million for community colleges, and $373 million for the monetary award program. We are grateful that the 2015 spending plan holds higher education appropriations virtually flat, but also recognize that this current budget will need further discussion and repair, even though we're already in planning phases for the next fiscal year budget. We do look forward to working with all of you, with our higher education partners, to advocate for proper funding for higher education. Now turning to the Illinois public agenda. Illinois has joined more than 40 states in a collaborative effort to raise learning standards and improve college and career readiness for students through the Illinois Learning Standards and the Partnership for the Assessment of Readiness for College and Careers, or as we call PARC. Both the Illinois Learning Standards and PARC are seen as a viable way to increase the number of graduating students who are prepared for college and workforce success, and we're excited to be a partner in this great initiative. Today, the board will hear from Dr. Chris Cook, Superintendent of the State Board of Education, Matt Gandel, President of Education Strategy Group, Allison Jones, Vice President for Post-Secondary Collaboration for Achieve, and Kathy Havens-Payne, Senior Director of Education Leadership with State Farm. They will lead a panel discussion with the board on the Illinois Learning Standards and PARC and its ability to improve college and career readiness in Illinois. Now I'll turn it over to Dr. Applegate for the Executive Director's report.
Thank you, Lindsay. I'll be brief. First of all, I want to indicate that we had a very good conversation with the presidents today around the Common Core standards in Park. We conducted in June, as I noted to the board members in an update memo I sent them recently, a series of clinics around the state with almost 500 representatives from teams, from institutions, private, for-profit, public, as well as representing 80 institutions, really trying to forward this conversation on what it's going to take for higher education to really support the effective implementation of Common Core in Park and the benefits that will accrue for us because of it, and we'll hear more about that later. You also have received Senate Bill 903, which the GAPS team I know talked about today, which is focusing on how do we up the performance of our higher ed system and education in general in Illinois and serving the needs of our fast-growing Latino population. Our staff is already hard at work with that task force, and we will continue to be engaged and working to coordinate engagement of our institutions as that work moves forward. As you know, all of the population growth in Illinois for the next 20 years or longer will come from the Latino population. They currently have one of the lowest higher ed achievement levels in the state, and we need to turn that around. You also received from us a request that you had a list of laying out some of the mandatory roles and responsibilities that the board has in place with new board members and our new agenda. We wanted to make sure you had in your hands the summary of the various rules and regulations and the responsibilities that we have and the way in which we need to move forward and focus on the ones that make the most difference for our goals for Illinois. I also wanted to introduce Jennifer Delaney. Jennifer, are you here? Is Jennifer here? There she is. Jennifer is our faculty fellow. As you know, the board began a process, this is before I arrived, of engaging faculty members from around the state to work with us and provide support for our agenda. Jennifer has her PhD from Stanford, her MA from Harvard, and her BA from Michigan. Despite going to those second-tier institutions, we think she can make a significant contribution to the work we're doing. And particularly, we are trying to design this faculty fellow work so it is very much aligned with the challenges we face at the board. So Jennifer is going to be looking at a number of issues that speak to the affordability issue in terms of looking at the impact of the guaranteed tuition program on whether that truly has increased affordability for students. She's going to be looking at some issues around perhaps performance funding and also some new funding models that other states are employing around higher education. So we're excited to have her here with us and to have that expertise on staff to help us work around these issues. Some good news that I wanted to share with you. Several of you suggested to me that it would be good to share some good news when we come together when I met with you individually. So let me share some of that. Some of it I hope maybe old news, but at least it's good news. As you know, the state of Illinois received the prestigious Frank Newman Innovation Award from the Education Commission of the States. Recently, Chris Cook, who's going to be with us shortly, was there, as well as myself, Harry Berman, who had a lot to do with it, and others from the state. This was given to us for some very innovative work that's being done around principal preparation, moving to the kind of 21st century model that prepares building leaders to be the kind of learning leaders that we need to advance education agenda in Illinois, competency-based, more clinical, giving them a broader set of experiences from preschool all the way through high school. An extremely innovative program that I can be highly complimentary of because I had nothing to do with it, but it's a well-deserved award, and we were pleased that Illinois was recognized at the National Education Commission of the States. This is one of two awards, prestigious awards, they give each year, so a big deal. Also, I wanted to mention that we have been working very closely. I think Jane Angelis is here somewhere, and you have at your place here this Generation Serving Generations, and I was graciously asked to come speak to that group. It is an effort to connect in areas of service and volunteerism, multiple generations to serve the needs of Illinois, some of it tied to our efforts to support more students to achieve our 60% goal, and we're very pleased to be a part of that. I will be leaving here after this meeting to go speak to the Edgar Fellows. Some of you are familiar with that group, which is a young leadership group here in Illinois, and We'll be talking to them about what we need from our young leaders to help us advance the Illinois work. There was other good news I shared with you in my regular email to the board. I won't bother to go through all that. Lastly, in the way of, I guess it's good news. I don't know if Bill treats it as good news or not, but Bill Fuhrer, our council, it is his 80th birthday, I believe, today. And as they say, it's good news in the sense that it is your 80th birthday and you're still here. So we rely on Bill heavily for a lot of good advice, and we appreciate the long service that he's provided to the board. So with that, I will stop and we'll move on to the other agenda. So unless there are any questions from the board members.
Thanks, Dr. Applegate. You know, the board has talked a lot about advocacy and the need to really be effective advocates. We talked about that at our last meeting and have continued to focus on that as a priority. And we're about to read a resolution about, I think, a really, truly effective advocate for higher education. So I'm going to ask board member Jane Hayes to come forward to read a resolution honoring Representative Naomi Jacobson.
She's over there, across.
Okay. This is bittersweet for me because I have known Naomi personally for a very long time, and she has been such a wonderful champion for higher education. I know that personally, so it's my great pleasure to read this resolution, Naomi, in your honor. Excuse me. We, the members of the Illinois Board of Higher Education, extend our gratitude to State Representative Naomi D. Jacobson for her service to the Illinois higher education community during her notable tenure as a member of the Illinois General Assembly. We are especially appreciative of her leadership to the state and its college students and public and private institutions of higher education as the chair of the House Higher Education Committee. Representative Jacobson's top priorities as a state legislator representing the 103rd District of the Illinois House of Representatives have always included higher education. The University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign is located in this district and has been well served by its representative to the Illinois House for the past 12 years. Representative Jacobson is an alumnus of the University of Illinois, having earned both a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in teaching English as a second language. As an educator, she has brought valuable and informed perspectives to bear on many important state legislative initiatives, including making college textbooks more affordable by requiring book publishers to make bundled sets of textbooks and study materials accessible in less costly ways to students. As a member of the House Higher Education and Elementary and Secondary Education Appropriations Committees, Representative Jacobson has been a strong and consistent advocate for adequate funding for education, especially the state's public universities and colleges, and for the Monetary Award Program, the state's need-based financial assistance program for Illinois college students. She has worked for quality educational programs from preschool to post-secondary education, always with an eye focused on the state's workforce needs. Representative Jacobson has been generous with her time, serving as a legislative member on the Illinois Public Agenda for College and Career Success Task Force, an executive committee member representing Illinois for the Midwest Higher Education Compact, and Illinois' delegate to the Education Commission of the states. She also has been an important member of Illinois' team for Complete College America. In addition to her attention to higher education, Representative Jacobson has chaired the Illinois House Human Services Committee and is a member of the Adoption Reform Committee. As the mother of 8 children, She and her husband have been active in adoptive services and foster parent support groups, and she has been an influential legislator in protecting natural resources and reducing environmental hazards in children's products and in local communities. Representative Jacobson's leadership on behalf of the college students of Illinois, ensuring increased access to affordable and high-quality opportunities for college, and successful completions to post-secondary degrees and credentials is unparalleled. Our best wishes to her as she prepares to retire from the Illinois General Assembly at the end of the 98th session. Her presence will certainly be missed on the floor of the State House. We are confident, however, that she will continue to support Illinois' higher education system in her capacity as an emeritus Illinois state legislator. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Representative, would you like to say a few words? Representative, would you like to say a few words?
She'll give me the microphone. Let's have a picture.
You want to hold?
Thank you very much. It is certainly an honor to be here today and see so many faces in this audience that I've had the opportunity and the pleasure to work with. These leaders in higher education who are in this room, and leaders in education for the people of Illinois. I'd like to say the children, but we know that it doesn't stop when one is no longer a child being educated in Illinois. I was really very pleased to hear all the work earlier about the cooperation between the community colleges and the university here, because that's something that's very important to me, and I know it's important to UIUC. I'm a product of the community college system before going into UIUC. I was a non-traditional student. My time being a non-traditional student was not because I had been in the military, but I just didn't get my degree when I was the normal college age. And in fact, I had 4 children, and we acquired our 5th while I was a student. It did say in here that I have 8 children. 6 of them are adopted. So, you know, I only missed 1 day of classes from having a new baby. But the importance of our community colleges and our universities and our graduate schools for Illinois just is, it can't be topped. I want to share with you something that is really exciting to me, if I have a minute to do that. I just came back from a trip talking to people about education, talking about different things that these people would like to see the state of Illinois and work with. These folks happen to be in China. I was in China, and I talked to many business leaders and people in education. And in fact, in another, I don't know, beginning of October sometime, I don't think the date has been set, there's going to be a gentleman coming from China. His first stop will be at Lakeland Community College, where he's going to announce that he is willing to invest $30 million, I think was the amount, in Illinois community colleges, to have people from our community colleges go to China and help train the kinds of things that we're doing in our community colleges, the things that are important to our local businesses. And each community college, of course, has its own unique classes that they offer. And with the demand for trained technicians, trained people in the workforce in China, they want to learn from us. So I think we should be happy about that, that we have really set a standard that other folks are looking at around the world. So when I heard this, I said, I'm going to be at a meeting with higher education people. Can I share that? And he said, of course. So that's going to be happening. I don't believe the date has been set, but it'll be sometime in early October. And, I also talked to some folks in the agriculture business, and of course, our community colleges, depending where they are, work in those areas. So I think we have a lot going for us with what we do here in Illinois and sharing that throughout the world. And once again, I want to thank you for this honor today. And, I'll be leaving the legislature, but I don't think I'll be leaving higher education interests. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we turn to the next resolution, I want to acknowledge another advocate in Springfield, State Representative Bob Pritchard, who represents the 70th District of the Illinois House. Representative Pritchard, would you like to come forward and make a few remarks? Just skipped around a little bit.
So I'll make this real quick. I can't come to an affair where we're recognizing a retiring member who has had so much influence in the higher education as well as secondary education as well. And Naomi, we're going to miss you, and we hope that you'll continue that line of communication on some of the priorities that you've seen and learned as you've traveled the world, and certainly as you've experienced a lot of change here in Illinois. These are exciting times for us in Illinois. Great opportunities for higher education as we focus on how we're going to get to that 60% in just another few years, 12 years or so. It's going to require us to think outside the box. And we in the legislature are willing to talk to you and listen to see what tools you need to help think outside the box. One of those bills that was just signed by the governor dealt with the distance learning. I think that's going to be a huge impetus to saying it's all right to have interstate compacts. Sometimes some people have questions whether we can do that under our procurement laws. But clearly that is the intent of the legislature, that we focus on efficient ways to build collaborations, to certainly save money, but to get a better quality product. And if we can do that in a different way of administering education, I think that behooves all of us. The other thing is the partnership that you've already heard about, and I'm sorry I missed your comments, President Baker. But clearly, working with community colleges and four-year institutions is the future. We've got to find ways that we can do that more seamlessly and partner in ways that help prepare our young people coming through the K-12 system to be more college and career ready. Those are important initiatives. I had a great conversation with your executive director yesterday, and I'm excited about the direction that the board in particular is taking, but certainly all of higher education is accepting and embracing. It is ways to work in partnerships that help those students be ready and help them move along the continuum. I look forward to working with you and becoming more vigorous in our higher education voice in the legislature this next legislative cycle. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here, Representative Pritchard, and for your leadership and all that you do for higher ed. Finally, we'll turn next to the resolution honoring Dr. Elmer Washington. I'll ask Board Member Addison Woodward to come forward to present, and we'll ask Elmer to come forward, please. I've learned so much from him, and he's been an invaluable member of the board. So we're grateful that you're here today so that we can honor you.
Finally, it's like 18 font and I can actually read it. So it's really an honor to be able to read this resolution for Elmer. We, the members of the Board of Higher Education, extend our admiration and respect to Dr. Elmer L. Washington for his commitment to Illinois students, colleges, and universities. Elmer has been an active and devoted member of the board since 2005, serving as a valuable advocate for underrepresented students and the supportive services necessary to close the achievement gap. His higher education knowledge and experience has served the board well, especially his contributions to the development and implementation of the Illinois Public Agenda for College and Career Success. He also chaired the board committee that reviewed and made significant revisions to the administrative rules for carrying out the mandates of the Board of Higher Education Act, the Private College Act, and the Academic Degree Act. Elmer's commitment to Illinois' higher education system is noteworthy. He began his teaching career at Chicago State University in 1969 and served as Vice President for Research and Development, Acting Vice President for Student Services, Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences, Dean of Natural Sciences and Mathematics, Chief Contract Negotiator for the University Professionals of Illinois, and President of the Chicago State Chapter of the University Professionals of Illinois. He is a Chicago State University Emeritus Professor. He holds a bachelor's degree and master's degree in chemistry from Texas Southern University, conducted graduate study at the University of Chicago, and received his PhD in physical chemistry from the Illinois Institute of Technology. Aside from his work in higher education, he is an active community leader serving as the chair of the Faith United Protestant Church Society Committee, site manager for the South Suburban Action to Deliver Shelter Program, PADS, chairman of the Medical School Scholarship Committee for the Dr. Charles E. Gavin Memorial Foundation, past president of the Kiwanis Club of Park Forest, and a 2008 Park Forest Historical Society Hall of Fame inductee. His leadership to the students of Illinois spans over 40 years, and his vast knowledge and experience has been a tremendous asset to the state of Illinois. The board owes Elmer a significant debt of gratitude for the generous gift of volunteer time and service he has given to the students of Illinois. His gracious presence will be missed. The board extends its sincere best wishes to Dr. Washington. Illinois Board of Higher Ed, August 5th, 2014. I would add, Elmer and I have made many rides together to Springfield. Many of these things we've talked about, his PADS involvement, his church involvement. Elmer shared a great deal about his family. He has very accomplished children and grandchildren. And there's a wonderful Washington family history that I've heard a lot about. And it was my turn to drive to Springfield next time, but I got one free. So congratulations, Elmer.
Thanks a lot.
Elmer, would you like to say a few words?
I guess I can talk now. Thanks a lot, Addison. I'm glad you did not mention that we drove to Springfield in record time, because there might be a state trooper here still looking for us. But we've had great times. I've enjoyed it very much. And I put on glasses to read now. I'm 20/20 without glasses now, but I gotta read, okay? Chairwoman Anderson, Executive Director Applegate, members of the Illinois Board of Higher Education, and all the supporters of and participants in Illinois education, K through 16, graduate and professional. It has been a high honor and a great privilege to serve as a member of the IBHE for some 9 years and to have been involved in Illinois higher education for almost 50 years. Of course, I am including years as a graduate student. It has been such a pleasure to know many of the people in this room. Based on my diverse experiences, we are extremely fortunate to have board members and a higher education community that will dramatically meet our current educational challenges. I was recently reminded of the difficulty of this task when I read Henry Louis Gates' The African Americans, Many Rivers to Cross, the companion book to a 6-part PBS documentary covering some 500 years of African American history. Consider only two statistics from Gates, many of them, the two we've already seen also as board members. In 2007, 71.6% of all births to non-Hispanic black mothers were to mothers who were unmarried. For whites, the figure is 27.8%. For Hispanics, it is 51.3%. Second statistic, nearly half of all black children who begin kindergarten do not graduate from high school. I know that in Illinois, we have communities, organizations, programs, activities, and institutions responding to these realities. In fact, there are numerous student, community, institutional, and organizational success stories that need to be widely disseminated, replicated, and expanded. You've heard some examples today. You've heard examples at many of our board meetings. But I will give you one example that you haven't heard. Since 1998, I have been a participant in a racial and ethnic diversity book discussion group. Our most recent book, which happens to be our 82nd book, was A Father's Triumphant Story, Raising African American Boys in Contemporary Times, by Damari McGill. The father, Damari, and the mother, Ira Carroll, led our discussion. The book is primarily focused on principles and practices of being successful parents for two African American boys on the south side of Chicago. You may already know of the McGill brothers. Damari Lavelle McGill, at the age of 39, is principal flutist with the Dallas Symphony Orchestra. And Anthony McGill, at the age of 35, is principal clarinetist with the Metropolitan Opera Orchestra. Effective September 15, 2014, Anthony will become principal clarinetist with the New York Philharmonic Orchestra. The McGill's brothers' story underscores the multiplicity of influences that must be negotiated to ensure the most positive outcomes in providing opportunities for a comprehensive and high-quality education. These include family and community support, personal initiative and commitment, organizational benefits, parental love and sacrifices, adequate resources, effective teaching and mentoring, exposure to positive role models, and establishing and striving for challenging and positive goals. In conclusion, I deeply appreciate having had the opportunity to be of some service as this board makes major strides in creating an environment in which many more Illinois citizens, young people and adults, will benefit from the best possible education. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Washington. Next, we'll welcome Ron Kimberling, President of Argosy University, who will give us a report on behalf of the proprietary college presidents.
Well, I'm not Dr. Friedberg, who I believe is on your agenda. Chairwoman Anderson, Executive Director Applegate, distinguished board members, IBHE staff, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. At the invitation of our chair, Dr. Susan Friedberg, and on behalf of the Proprietary Advisory Committee, I'm pleased to share with you a profile of the independent for-profit sector of higher education in Illinois. The statistics and information I'm providing today represent only the degree-granting institutions under the aegis of the IBHE, and not the post-secondary level non-degree institutions formerly regulated by the ISBE and in recent years the IBHE. The Proprietary Advisory Committee, which has been officially recognized as the representative liaison group to the IBHE from the for-profit sector for many years, is limited to degree-granting institutions. So just to dive into statistics, most of these are from the IBHE's website, some are from the College Board. There are 35 independent for-profit colleges and universities approved by the IBHE. 9 of these are considered out of state because their home campus is outside the state of Illinois, although they have campuses domiciled in Illinois. And many of these 35 institutions do have multiple campuses, so physically the footprint's a little larger than that. There may be a popular stereotype among some that independent for-profit or so-called proprietary institutions are largely two-year business schools or career colleges. But the fact is that our sector is incredibly diverse, ranging from associate degrees to professional doctorate degrees, with ownership variances as diverse as single-owner colleges, privately held corporations, publicly traded corporations, and even kind of a new creature under federal law, public benefit corporation. In general, our institutional diversity is most like our colleagues in the independent not-for-profit sector. All of us are accredited by associations recognized by the U.S. Secretary of Education, most of us regionally accredited either by the Higher Learning Commission or one of its peers covering other parts of the U.S. Many of our programs of study, especially programs tied to state licensure in fields such as nursing, clinical psychology, radiology, and professional counseling, to name just a few, are also recognized by programmatic accreditors. We're much older than many people think. The oldest continuing independent for-profit institution in Illinois is Rockford Business College, founded in 1862, 33 years prior to this institution that we're housed in today. Other examples, Sanford Brown College, 1866. I call this our 80 and over club. Midstate College, 1888. Coyne American Institute, 1899. Northwestern College, 1902. Illinois Institute of Art, 1916. Harrington College, 1931. DeVry University, 1931. Fox College, 1932. And Kendall College, 1934. As a sector, we are committed to holding down tuition increases and operating efficiently and economically so that increases in student debt can be halted. The College Board annually reviews published tuition and fees. Its latest report for the academic year just ended, 2013-14, for full-time undergraduates, showed that the for-profit sector had the lowest increase in tuition and fees last year, $70 per academic year, or a 0.5% increase. The College Board reported fee increases ranging from 2.9% to 3.8% for the other sectors of higher education. The most recent IPEDS enrollment numbers on the IBHE website, dating from 2012, show that 76,356 students, or 9% of the 852,865 students enrolled in all degree-granting institutions of higher education, are from independent for-profits. Another way to look at this statistic is to think of our sector as the equivalent of two mid-sized public universities. The same IPEDS report shows that independent for-profit institutions granted 25,459 associates, bachelor's, master's, and doctoral degrees, or 12.3% of the 206,454 degrees granted that year by IBHE-approved institutions. Our sector is proud of its contributions to the public agenda goal of increasing the percentage of Illinois residents holding college degrees. So the reason for the overproduction of degrees by our sector relative to the sector's proportion of enrollment, 12.3% of the degrees, 9% of the enrollment, represents an opportunity for further research. And I don't stand here today with any information or foregone conclusions about that. Our commitment to provide access and opportunity to diverse populations is very strong. If you look at those same 2012 IPEDS statistics, African Americans represent 25.7% of our student population. Hispanics represent 11.8% of our student population. Native Americans and Native Hawaiians represent 1% of our population, a small number, but the other sector's percentage is 0.4%, so it's still a little bit more. One area where we do not have as many enrollments as our colleagues in the public and independent not-for-profit sector is Asians and Pacific Islanders, who represent 3% of our student enrollments and 22.2% at public and independent nonprofits. And one area for further analysis, probably for all sectors, is a catch-all group in IPEDS that includes international students, students who report mixed ethnic heritage, and students of unknown ethnicity. While we have these percentages in our enrollment, our track record is very strong in graduating students of color. The proportion of graduates outstrip the representations by underrepresented groups in our student population. For example, 29.2% of our graduates are African Americans, compared to 25.7% of our population. 12.6% of our graduates are Hispanic, compared to 11.8% of our population. 4.2% of our graduates are Native Americans and Native Hawaiians, compared to 1% of our population. Our sector is proud to be part of the higher education spectrum in Illinois and to be held accountable and to hold ourselves accountable to the strongest standards of quality and ethics. We stand firmly behind the public agenda. We stand firmly behind today's resolution endorsing the Guided Pathways for Success, which is fully in line with our sector's commitment to treating each student as an individual with potential for success. We have always supported the need for adequate staffing for the IBHE to carry out its work. Indeed, a few years ago, we helped initiate legislation to charge our sector fees for operating and program approvals to cover the hiring of additional IBHE staff to process applications coming in from all sectors. We recently joined the IBHE and our colleagues from other sectors in opposing proposed legislation that would grant exemptions from state regulation for certain institutions claiming to have religious affiliations. Representatives from our sector have served on various committees to improve public policy, including the Public Agenda Task Force, Isaac's Committee to review the MAP program, the committee designing policies for the Unified Data System, the DFI Program Advisory Board, and other groups. And we are happy to commit to continuing this work as partners in support of the new initiatives being undertaken by the board. Thank you for your gift of time. I'd be pleased to take any questions.
No, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I've been trying to take us away a little bit from reports. I realize we've added some reports and now we're going to do 4 more action team reports. I am excited to move into the panel discussion following the reports, but I think it's important to update you on our action teams, because this approach is new, and because I think our team members will really tell you about what our focus is and the progress that we've made. I think it'll be helpful, although we'll keep these brief. But we're going to start with Jane Hayes with advocacy.
Thank you. To refresh your memories and for our new board members, one of our 4 action teams has to do with advocacy for higher education in Illinois. And we are at a very early stage, but basically our goal is to try to increase the impact that IBHE has in the state of Illinois as a leader and collaborator to try to bring together all of our stakeholders and collectively have more influence. So while it's a little more amorphous perhaps and subjective than some of the other action teams, we view it as no less important, because it really is taking our message in all these other areas out to the public and trying to get things done and get things accomplished that are in furtherance of the public agenda. So really we're just into the second quarter of this. The main thing that we have done is that Lindsay and I, and then Jim separately, sometimes Jim has participated with us, sometimes Lindsay has done meetings on her own. We have really been holding a series of just informal conversations, one-on-one meetings with different leaders from government, from business, from the higher education community. Some of them are people that we identified as knowledgeable, influential. Some of them are people who came to us and expressed an interest in meeting. Just trying to communicate the message that we have new leadership at IBHE, that we're in something of a new day, new era, and we want to reach out to them, get their feedback, get their ideas, get their comments, perhaps in some cases use them as a sounding board for ideas that we might have. So that's the main thing we've been doing. And we will be conducting more of those meetings individually on an ongoing basis. Secondly, we are in the very early stages of hopefully planning a reception, combination social gathering, and informative event prior to the IBHE meeting in December that will be held in Springfield, to which we will invite legislators as well as college presidents and perhaps others, because it will be a good time. The legislature will be in session and a time to build relationships and perhaps communicate some of our messaging. We are exploring the idea of next year having a conference for trustees of the public universities, to which we would invite all of the trustees who may not have as much contact with each other from different institutions, and provide them with an educational opportunity and develop some relationships, hopefully, as well. Another thing that the IBHE staff is working on, and we hope by October to have a little bit more specificity to share with you, is a audit or communications review of the different mechanisms that IBHE uses to communicate externally, to see which ones are effective, which ones are perhaps less effective than we would like them to be, and then revise the plan, come up with a new communications, updated communications plan going forward, including a social media plan. May involve more editorial board outreach with newspapers, more press outreach. We're still just kind of in the very early stages of thinking about this. We do want to thank President Baker for hosting us last night, and for also convening the meeting that he did yesterday with Dr. Applegate and Chairman Anderson participated in. We would love to have the hosts of our future meetings conduct something similar and we will hopefully be reaching out to some of the hosts in advance of our IBHE meetings to see if the president or the person who's kind of hosting us, think about, can they bring together a group of leaders the day before that we might individually meet with. The purpose of all of this is just to kind of build relationships, explore ideas, gather feedback, etc. And so ultimately from all of this, we are hoping by the end of the year to develop a more specific action plan for our external relations, and perhaps put some metrics around it or some specific goals that will accomplish certain things by certain dates. But
Thanks, Jane. Questions? Next, Jay Bergman for affordability.
The Affordability Committee, of course, affordability is a big issue here in Illinois. We want to get the largest number of students that we can to our institutions, and obviously affordability is a big factor. We looked at two things today. The first was additional non-board committee members. We talked about that early on, of recruiting some people from off the board, that are not members of the board, to be members of ours and perhaps all of the committees. And we identified, you might say, three fields that we wanted to recruit people from. Not necessarily the people themselves, but three fields, three professions, so to speak, that we feel would be very helpful in this committee. We identified a couple of people that we may want to talk to, and we may be talking to those in the interim. But that was the first area we discussed. By the way, Christine Wiseman is the convener of the committee. She wasn't here today, so I took the notes and I'm reporting this. The other area is, we're talking about affordability, but what are really the components of affordability? Or what will make things more affordable? Our first area we talked about was additional state funding, which of course is easier said than done. We talked about possibly some trying to get some additional ISAC funds, some ISAC funds specifically for community colleges. Talked about unfunded mandates, funding for deferred maintenance on some of our campuses. What we're going to do with these and the other two items I'm going to mention to you is next time, 2 months from now when we meet, we're going to drill down and try and pick just several of these that we are going to then pursue. The second area that we discussed with respect to affordability was to operate as economically as efficiently as possible for our state universities. And we talked about certain areas such as low enrollment programs and other things, and we'll be talking about that further also. The third area that we discussed was lowering student costs. Now, I'm not talking about lowering tuition. We're talking about methods wherein students can get an education at an overall lower cost. We have a number of items that the committee is going to discuss next time, such as trying to get more people out of school in four years rather than 5 or 6, trying to keep credit hours to about what's needed to graduate, perhaps some credit hours for some prior life experiences, talking about it's trying to tie our community colleges in with the four-year universities, perhaps a little bit more, where some students would take some community college courses at a lower cost, dual degree programs. We have quite a few items. Really the plan is today we just made lists of these items. I'm going to be, with the help of staff, sending them out to other members of the committee and asking that they come up with some additional ideas if they have them. And then in a couple of months, we'll sit down and we'll try and pick several of these out and pursue those more aggressively. And I might add too, I overheard a conversation, I don't know if it's accurate or not, that we may be going to a schedule where each committee only meets every other meeting, which would only be 3 times per year. If that was accurate, I would hope that whoever was thinking of that might rethink it. And I only say that, at least with respect to our committee, and I'm sure the other ones too, these are important topics. And if we're only going to meet 3 times a year, I'm not sure that we're going to be quite as effective as we would be if we met 6 times a year. One possible way to do things would be to have all 6 committees, or all 4 committees meet every time, but have one time from, say, 9:30 to 10:30 in the morning, another one from 10:30 to 11, so that everybody be on 2 committees, but that they would all meet every time. So that concludes the report of the Affordability Group.
Thank you. Next is Addison Woodward, increasing adult completions.
Well, I'll try and make this fairly brief. We had 3 presentations from faculty and staff people from Northern Illinois. They were thought-provoking. One focus seemed to be trying to get the community college folks who have Associates of Applied Science degrees into bachelor's programs at Northern Illinois, and accepting a good deal of their credits and then working with community colleges on how to make some bridge courses. We looked at our mission vision statement and we combined that. The other, I suppose, major thing we did, we're going to focus primarily on veterans, and we're going to look at private business and vocational schools, and then those will be our primary focus for trying to increase adult learning completion. And we changed the title of our group to the Non-Traditional and Adult Learning Action Team. We had quite a discussion on what was non-traditional, what was adult, and those get kind of intermixed, and so we're going to use both of those as our title. Thank you.
Thank you, Santos, for reducing attainment gaps.
Larry stole my notes and everything, so I'm done. He was doing a lot. What he discussed today, we also discussed it in our area of reducing the gaps. We're still at the discussion level, and nevertheless, we addressed several items, and one of the items was where do we start? How early in the educational pathway? So we were able to identify that we decided to begin our work but looking at the underrepresented groups, beginning with the Latino and the African American students, and then we would move on to the next most underrepresented group. We thought that this would be the best way to do it instead of using a wider approach that would be rather time-consuming. We decided to start with that. From there, we went into the conversation about where are we going to, what group are we going to start looking at? And we decided that maybe we could look at where do we start? In other words, how far back do we go? And we decided that we should maybe look at, begin our work at looking at some of the seminary or the senior years in high school, that are these type of initiatives that are helping students to catch up as well as to speed up their preparation for higher education. We felt that this would be a good start, and from there we will look at other initiatives and success stories or success programs in higher education at the different universities, and there are a number of them. We just haven't been able to bring them all together where the left and the right hand are speaking to each other, so that's what our next steps will be. Well, of course, we identified who are the stakeholders, in addition to the students, of course, and the faculty advisors. We're also talking about family and parents. And family, we're saying this because among a number of our students, the students of color, Latino and Black, when you talk about family, when you talk about parents, usually they're not coming from parents when they're in high school. My experience has been that a number of these students throughout the years, their families tend to be, their own peers tend to be extended family members rather than the traditional mother, father. So we're going to be extending this to our definition of who are stakeholders to the family, but nevertheless, there are students that who still have the traditional structure of parents, so we're going to be looking at that as well. And of course, one of the things that we looked at, in addition to some of the issues, we found that one of the major issues that we do definitely have to look at as far as success of these students, how do you reduce the gaps, is by looking at the cultural aspects of the students. That's important for us, the cultural aspects, and we're going to really look at what are some of the factors that are impinging on their preparation, which is not limited to the classroom. It's their neighborhoods, their experience at home, their family structures. That's another thing we're going to do. And we're also going to try to meet a little bit more often. This is our second time that we met. It's kind of difficult for us, but we're getting into gear. We're coming up with a timetable, and we hope to have something reported more in depth for our next meeting in October. And then have hopefully some type of an action plan for the beginning of the year.
Thank you. And as we plan for the action teams to continue to meet at each board meeting, I would encourage you to have additional meetings in between our board meetings. You had a question, Terry?
Yes, a question and a comment, I guess, for the last two, what's the new name? Sorry, non-traditional and adult learning, and reducing the gaps. I think as the board and the action groups think about those students with disabilities need to somehow be intertwined. There's a very large unemployment rate among adults with disabilities, and among many of the things the governor has done, he's also signed an employment first legislation which calls the entire state to think about how do we promote that, and the institutions of higher education need to be very involved in that process. So the gap for Latinos with disabilities, that's another dimension. The gap for African Americans with disabilities. Again, as you think about veterans, that's one group of people with disabilities, but there's a large number of individuals who enter our institutions of higher education with disabilities and don't finish. They enter at actually okay rates, but they don't complete. So I just would encourage the board, as I'm not a regular member here, to think about that and how we can address that as well.
Thank you. Any other questions or discussion? Now we'll turn to the Illinois Public Agenda for College and Career Success. Dr. Applegate?
Yeah, we wanted to have a discussion today. We had it with our presidents earlier and with the GAPS group around the importance of the effective implementation of Common Core and the PARCC assessment in Illinois for many of our goals around closing gaps, around affordability. And so we are fortunate to have today with us some great folks to talk to us about why this is so important and predominantly why it's so important to higher education. This is not a K-12 issue. This is an issue around the success of our students in college. So I'll ask our panel members to come on up and join us right here at the table. While they're doing that, two things my staff mentioned that I should have mentioned during my report. One is Dr. Delaney is a professor at the University of Illinois, so she continues her association with world-class institutions, and our thanks to the University of Illinois for allowing her to be a fellow with us. And secondly, Representative Jenkins mentioned of China. I did want to mention that we have a Japanese contingent coming to the board very shortly, and we're organizing a meeting for them where they're coming to learn about what we do in Illinois and higher education. So two things I forgot. Thank you, staff, for reminding me, and now we'll get the panel started. And I want to say to the board members, please feel free to interject with questions or comments at any time. As you know, we try to not make these talking head panels. We're going to be asking questions, and folks are going to be responding. As you have thoughts or want to ask questions, please feel free to engage and ask those questions as we move through the agenda. So let me introduce the folks we have here. I think you know some of them, but maybe not all of them. Immediately to my right is Chris Cook, who's our State Superintendent of Public Instruction. You have the bios for the people. I would just simply tell you that when I was at Lumina and working nationally, Chris was generally recognized around the country as one of the best and most visionary state superintendents of instruction in the country. So we're fortunate to have him here in Illinois, and he has been a great partner. I was going to say partner in crime, but that probably didn't sound quite right, but a great partner for us working together since I've been here. Also, Matt Gandel, sitting just beyond. Matt is president of the Education Strategy Group, which is a strategic consulting organization that's working to help to foster and develop higher education constructive higher education engagement in the implementation of Common Core and the assessments all across the country. I first met Matt when he's worked at the Department of Education as a senior advisor to Secretary Duncan, but I first met Matt when he was at Achieve, which is some would call sort of the launcher of a lot of the work that has resulted in the Common Core work. And so Matt has been at this for quite a while in terms of making this opportunity a real one for the country. And also then Allison Jones, or AJ, I think as he prefers to be called. Allison spent more than 2 decades actively involved in the Cal State system, working there to increase student success, both through student supports and academic work, and he has been a leader in the park work to ensure that these assessments are in fact different kinds of assessments that really make assess the kinds of things that our higher education faculty have been telling us for a long time our high school graduates need to know and be able to do. So we're very pleased to have them here. And I guess I'd like to start with a question to all of you. Obviously, the development of the Common Core standards, it's been, if you count all the various earlier iterations.
So sorry.
Yeah.
Did you introduce?
Oh, I'm sorry, Kathy.
I'm so sorry.
Kathy at the far end. No, thank you.
I was like,
Sorry, Kathy. Kathy Havens-Payne, she's Senior Director of Education and Leadership for State Farm. And Kathy and I have crossed paths a lot over the years. State Farm is one of those corporations and businesses that has taken very seriously its responsibility to be an active partner in driving education reform and change all across the country, and certainly here in Illinois. And we thought it very important for Kathy to be here because this work is, the importance of this work is not limited to our K-12 and colleges. It has an important, it's important to our country and to our workforce, and Kathy's voice, I think, has been a powerful and effective one over the years in pushing for the kinds of education reforms, and including Common Core, that we need in this country. So, again, so let me start. I'm so anxious to get to my questions. Thank you very much for Kathy. No, thank you. That was the. So this is, the Common Core has been probably more than, if you start early, more than a decade in the making, the standards, in terms of starting with a few states and then more states and now more than 40 states. The park assessments have been developing over the last 3 or more years, I guess, AJ. So it's been led by the states. It started in the states. It's led by the states. It's signed on by the governors of the states. But could you talk a little bit about the role of higher education has played over time? I think we had this discussion with the presidents. This is not one of those insular K-12 events. This has been something that has been very much on the higher education agenda. So could some of you talk about how that's in Illinois and nationally? Yeah.
Actually, I was going to ask Matt to kind of start off a little bit too, and maybe Chris, I'm not sure.
No, go ahead.
You
want to
do
Well, I'll do, just
Yeah.
prior to Common Core being an idea, and thanks, by the way, for the invitation to be here. It's great to see everyone. I should also let you know Dr. Nandi represents you well on the State Board of Education. His reports are both informative and legendary in terms of their entertainment value. So you should know both of that is the case. So it's a real pleasure to be here and at your board. I'll tell you that we had, shortly after I became superintendent in 2006, we had a meeting with Achieve. Achieve was helping guide us, and we had higher ed faculty and K-12 high school faculty in English, language arts, and math sitting down together to talk about and answer the question, what does it mean to be college ready? This is a question that we knew we needed the answer to, which higher ed has been telling us we needed the answer to for a number of years. That work was important. It was involved a number of institutions in the state and really poised Illinois well in terms of the conversation for Common Core standards, and even with Park and the genesis of Park. We had these relationships in place. And the involvement has continued in ways in which you heard Dr. Baker talk about here at Northern, where I was here in June, meeting with folks and talking about these within a P20 context, to ways in which Dr. Applegate informed. We've met numerous times with all sorts of folks at higher ed. And we're going to continue to need higher ed institutions involved in the detail, including important decisions like setting a cut score around the assessments, which will come in about a year. So that's some of the history. We're excited about the standards in that they're internationally benchmarked. This is the first time that states have had an opportunity to do that,
And I've always been an advocate for common measures among states because I believe that the algebra that a student takes, the mobility of families and of students now in this nation is greatly calling for something like this and some collaboration among states around what kinds of things students need to know and be able to do. So we were one of the states and one of the few chief state school officers still in place when we started having these conversations with the National Governors Association, the National Association of School Boards, the national groups that were part of that. Many of those meetings incidentally took place at the Chicago, at the Hilton, at the airport, where we met to bring in experts and talk about what should be done. We have great involvement from Illinois teachers. We have had through the onset of the development of the standards, and we'll continue to do that. So I wanted to set at least that context for the history. Turn it to you, Matt.
Thank you. Is this on? Can you hear me? Sort of? Okay. Great. Thank you. That's better. Well, thanks for having me here. I've been a big fan of all the work that Illinois has done over the years to try to help raise expectations for your young people so they're better prepared, and have worked a lot with Chris and his team and others on this issue. Chris did host the initial meetings of his colleagues around the country. Again, this was a completely bottom-up effort of states to move away from having K-12 expectations that were separated by state borders and say we should be able to agree on standards for kids K through 12. And it was a big deal, and it was, and Chris and some of his peers and governors around the country really led that. But to me, what's most notable in the Common Core, and this gets to Jim's question, is this started from a different place. The question at the beginning of this process was, what do young people need to know when they leave K-12 to be successful? And all the work was back mapping from there to set the K-12 standards that are now called the Common Core. I can tell you from having been a veteran of K-12 standard setting processes across the country, including in your state in the 90s, many other states, that was never the first question. It was a question of what K-12 thinks students need to know, and maybe at the end you would engage with higher education and the business community and ask what they thought. This was reversed. The early work was done with higher education, and in fact it included the College Board and ACT in pretty significant research and analysis of what the requirements are for success in first-year courses in your institutions and in the workplace. And that information then drove the development of the standards from elementary through secondary school. So I think that's the important thing to keep in mind. And every step of the way, higher education was involved. But to me, what was most important is where the process started. That was with the standards themselves. So now the Common Core and your version and the Illinois standards that you've adopted really do focus on that stair-step set of skills and knowledge, at least in English and literacy and mathematics, that you need to know to ultimately graduate high school ready for remediation-free college. Avoiding remediation, being able to take credit-bearing courses, which, as everybody knows, is your real ultimate ticket to success and earning a credential. The assessment process, which AJ can talk about, followed a very similar trend, and in fact probably has had even heavier involvement, I would say, of higher ed faculty and others around the country in developing the assessment measures that go along with the standards. So do you want to pick that one up?
Let's see if this is, it is working. Yes, I think what's important, first of all, is to reiterate what Matt said, and that is what was identified very early on was a set of skills coming from the higher education community that pointed to success in our entry-level credit-bearing courses. I think that is fundamental. Also in the development of the Common Core state standards, at the request of the higher education faculty across the country, was the inclusion of speaking and listening, which was very important because that's very important to our faculty in our classrooms, that students know, really hone their skills in speaking and listening. It was participatory. We had content experts, as Matt has mentioned, both in English language arts literacy as well as mathematics participate in that. But what we ended up with was a set of shared goals of what we thought students should know when they graduate from high school, and I think this is important again to reiterate. The assessment is, what is it that the student knows when they graduate from high school? And when we do the assessment, we're saying at the end of Algebra 2, what should a student be able to know and to do, and when they end 11th grade English language arts. And so that was what the faculty, if you go beyond that in terms of the development of the assessment, The engagement of our higher education faculty have been incredibly intense. Jim Applegate, your executive director, serves on our advisory committee on college readiness, which is chaired by the Commissioner of Higher Education for the state of Massachusetts. President Joe Savoy, president of the University of Louisiana at Lafayette, includes representatives from all of our states, as well as your national education leaders, Molly Broad from the American Council on Education, Muriel Howard from ASCU, Carol Geary Snyder from AAC&U, and so forth. So we brought together higher education community, which is responsible and charged by our governing board to make decisions in and around all of those aspects of the assessment that would affect students coming to our institutions. And in fact, when there are decisions to be made that will affect us, like what is the definition of college and career readiness, it is actually the Advisory Committee of College Readiness comes together with our governing board to make those decisions jointly. And the decision-making model was by consensus. If there was one voice of opposition, then it has to go back to the states for consultation. So we've been very fortunate. Every decision we have made in the last 4 years of defining what it is that students need to know coming out of high school, the beginning definition of college and career readiness, what within the Common Core state standards do we need to assess, what are the items on the assessments themselves that we're going to be looking at to bring together and define what is college and career ready. The definition of college and career readiness was actually determined by our higher education colleagues in conjunction with our K-12 colleagues. And then just in terms of some of the practical, the operational working groups that we have that deal with accessibility issues, communication issues, English language arts literacy, mathematics, technology, accommodations, performance level descriptors, and we have a work group on every one of those items, and there are representatives from higher education, including from the state of Illinois, on almost all of those working groups, and I think that's important to know as well.
Kathy, let me jump. There's considerable support for this implementation among employers all across the country, and I know you're a leader in that, and you've been in I've been at the GE meetings and others we've met there. Why is the employer community coming together around this in such a strong way? What do you see from your perspective as being important about the implementation of Common Core and the right kind of assessments that really get at outcomes and the kind of learning we're talking about?
Well, thank you for having me here, and again to the Board of Higher Ed for taking this on as an issue, because from the business community standpoint, it's critically important for us. The world has changed, and we all know that, and we need to have access for talent, and that talent needs to come from all sectors, and it needs to come from all ethnic groups and from all demographics. I'm sure you all are aware of some of the job statistics out there of jobs that are unfilled in this country because of a skill set, not because business is not hiring. And the challenge that we have is that too many of our young people are getting through both our K-12 system and, to be honest, through our higher ed system without the skills necessary to be successful when they reach the world of work. So for the business community, this is a huge issue for us. And I would say there's very unified support at all levels from both big business and smaller business around this issue. The other thing from a business perspective is that for business to be successful, you're going to move employees from place to place. And one of the challenges that I know we had at State Farm when we were looking to move employees across country is that the very first question a parent asks is when they're thinking about relocating is my fourth grader going to be on par with the fourth graders in their new location? And to find out that your child is a year behind or a year ahead of their peers was unsettling. So the fact that states came together and made sure that the expectations for all kids were the same was very important. And from a higher ed perspective, as you look at some of your goals moving forward, including closing the gap, it's very important that higher ed weighs in on this issue and is supportive of the efforts that are being made at the K-12 level to assure that all children have the skills necessary to be successful and to be able to handle credit-bearing courses. Again, I would argue that that goes to your affordability issue as well. As a parent of 3 sons who went through higher education. I know that I was very happy not to be paying for remedial courses when they entered college and to get them through in the time that we all would assume we would want our own children to go through, and we need to make that available for all children. So in doing so, they need to leave K-12 ready to enter your institutions, prepared to handle the coursework that you're going to give them, and then as they leave your institutions, we would like to hire them. So it makes sense to us.
Okay, and maybe we could, oh, sorry, yes, I was going to ask if there are questions.
Well, a couple of questions. First question, how does Common Core fit the kids that are not likely to be good college material? And the second question really is a political question. Common Core is not adopted and embraced throughout the country. There are pockets where people and state legislators are fighting against Common Core, and what is business doing there in those states to turn the tide there?
I think one of the biggest challenges that we're seeing across the country is misinformation that many people are hearing. And there are, what the business community is being very, I think that where business community is stepping up is just providing access to our own employees and to those that we work with around what the real story is. There is certainly information out there that this is a federally led effort, which it is not. It was developed through the partnership of the National Governors Association and the Council of Chief State School Officers. So this was not a federal mandate, and it has not been led at the federal level. This is definitely a state-led effort. I think the other challenge that a lot of people have is that what this is around the benchmarks and what children need to know and be able to do. This is not curriculum. This is not how teachers teach. That's still left to the states and to the individual communities to make those decisions. So the business community is trying very hard to share information and to make sure that people have access to that information. I know from in my role at State Farm, I get calls from our employees and from our customers who have concerns, and generally their concerns are because they do not have access to correct information about what this effort really is. So I think that's definitely a role for business to play.
Let me add to that real quick. There is a lot of pushback in some states around Common Core, and I think Kathy's absolutely right. It's usually based on misinformation, misunderstanding, and in some cases, folks who are just trying to undo something that they weren't part of. Rarely is it about the standards and the quality of what's being asked of young people or the impact it can have on those young people. That's not where the debate centers, sadly. So in addition to the business community really stepping forward over the last couple of years to try to be more communicative with people about why this is important, I just want to mention that the higher education community has recently done the same thing. Just a couple months ago, over 200 college presidents, system leaders, and chancellors from across 36 states formed and launched a coalition to try to be clearer about why high standards, including Common Core, are important to not only young people, but to the futures of the higher education systems in each of their states. And for anyone who's interested, I've got a kind of a one-pager describing that, and there's a website, higheredforhigherstandards.org. You can see all the names of your peers who have stood up because I think they're concerned that this misinformation could lead to the rolling back of a really good idea before it's been given a chance to really affect kids. So, and this is a set of standards where 75% of the teachers, K-12 across the country, fully embrace these standards and like the standards and want to implement the standards, which is unheard of when you think about it. So, your first question, though, I just want to quickly address about college ready, or I think you said maybe not all kids are college material. And I think what's important about the way these standards were put together was college and career ready is the phrase for a really important reason, is that this, if you meet the standards, this is supposed to open multiple doors for you as a young person. Not necessarily if you want to go and attain a 4-year degree, you'll be able to do that. And we hope many, many will. But these days, as Kathy can tell us from the business community and others, a 2-year degree is vitally important. Some kind of certificate and training program is vitally important. Most good jobs that allow for upward mobility and support a family need some level of post-secondary education or training. So these standards were devised to ensure that young people are prepared to take their next steps in their training and education. hopefully without needing remediation, and open maximum doors for folks and let them work that out based on what their interests are, but not have those doors closed prematurely. That's the way I would describe where the bar is being set. But
And I think, Chris, you may want to say something. I mean, I think sometimes this starts in third grade, right? So one of the advantages of this is it's a vertically aligned. We've never had anything like this before, where we're actually starting. And so the question is, a lot of times students at some point we say, well, maybe they're not set out for college. It's because we've systematically denied them the opportunity to get ready for college for years, even before they get to high school. So this is actually an opportunity starting in third grade to begin to keep more and more students on track so they can get those post-high school credentials that without it they're going to be doomed to working poor status. So, but you had talked about the vertical integration piece.
Yeah, I mean that's incredibly important. And remember too, these will manifest themselves in formative assessment. So the idea of these standards and the assessment we're going to be using are so that interventions can occur on behalf of students earlier. That's really the ball game here, even before kids are born. You know, we know so much more about what it takes to ensure kids are ready for school. But certainly by the third grade to the fourth to the fifth, all the way through the eighth grade, and then once in high school, we're going to have a sequential assessment that will tell us what the learning needs are of students so that interventions on behalf of those students can occur earlier. And that's really the name of the game and what we're trying to do. If we do that successfully, those students will be better prepared. That's our goal. Keep in mind, too, the standards we left behind were very broad and not terribly deep, and teachers didn't like them terribly much. They are excited about these standards because they do involve higher order thinking skills, the application of knowledge. And their preparation as a result of these standards is also changing in the state. We are moving to a venue of multiple assessments for students, multiple assessments for the preparation of teachers, performance assessments. And this is an important evolution as we prepare our teachers and our students to be ready.
You mentioned teachers, so let me go to, I mean, we think about
I did that very intentionally, by the way.
You know, there are various ways in which higher education needs to be engaged. Matt talked about higher ed for higher standards, the advocacy piece, trying to help people understand why this is so valuable for students and et cetera. But another part, obviously, higher education prepares still, despite alternative routes and all of that, still prepares the vast majority of teachers for this. So what is it that the higher ed community needs to be thinking about, and do you have some examples of where maybe they have thought about it to redesign the preparation of teachers? There was, many of you may have seen in the New York Times Sunday magazine maybe 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, there was a lengthy piece that talked about the higher ed, the Common Core math standards, and everybody was very complimentary of the math. It's internationally benchmarked. It's the way Finland and Singapore and all these countries that are eating our lunch in education are teaching math. But the challenge they pointed out was, how do we prepare math teachers to be able to teach that kind of math? This is not worksheet math. This is not handing out worksheets and having people do problems. So maybe a little bit about the role higher ed needs to play in ensuring we have the workforce, if you would, necessary to successfully make this happen for all of our students.
And Chris, just to also expand on the question being asked, not only the role that they need to play, but are there missed opportunities that we can help inform? Because I'd like to have some action items that we walk away with relative to your comments.
Sure, and I'll start and you guys can add in on this. So we've been thinking about the preparation of teachers for some time, even to the point where this came to a head was somewhat when we raised cut scores on even the basic skills tests for teachers, and that resulted in a lot of enrollment drops in the state. Certainly mastery of content is important for someone coming into the classroom, and we heard and saw and we're hearing from institutions about the amount of remedial work teacher candidates were taking in the state, and that's a problem. Our elementary teachers, for which we overproduce, we are an exporter state still for a number of teacher categories, including elementary. Many of them were choosing the profession because they didn't like science and math, which is not exactly what you need when you're trying to then make sure that students are going to be ready for learning these higher order thinking skills aligned to content. We have seen and involved in the teacher licensure board of course, that we work with has experienced, as program reviews come up, a real change in tenor in terms of some institutions having their faculty in math and in teacher prep work together, the same in language arts. We are seeing some increase in terms of clinical experiences. Many teachers, newly minted teachers, we have an advisory group of them as well, tell us what they really needed, and what was most helpful to them was clinical experiences where they could interact with students, with diverse learners. I'm going to be in a classroom where 50 different languages, kids are coming from 50 different languages spoken in the home. How do I get ready for that and be able to master content? How do I help make sure I know how to accommodate curriculum? So increasingly our teachers are faced with diverse learners in schools. We also see this with the 2 school districts that we now have oversight over. We intervened in 2 districts where less than 5% of students in high school were meeting standards, East St. Louis and North Chicago. And in both those, we saw a real gap, not only in the teacher's competency, but also in the administrator's competency, in building principals' ability to lead those buildings. And that takes some time to change that. We're already seeing results once we got folks in there who were better able to take a group of teachers and support them in their work. Evaluations were absent. We're envisioning a system where higher ed institutions will get feedback about teachers on the job. How are they doing? What teachers have made it, what haven't. They want that information. The institutions of higher ed have told us. We want to get them that information so they can better discern and be agile in terms of the preparation of teachers. And that feedback loop needs to be in place so that we can support them in that work.
I have a question. I'm sorry, a lot of this seems so vague to me. And I guess I'm not totally clear on exactly how these Common Core standards are implemented. I mean, is this a test that is given, an evaluation? And so that I'd like for you to be a little bit more specific, if you could, and just kind of back to the fundamental, how exactly this works. And then how does it work with respect to higher education when the student becomes a freshman or starts college? Does their institution in some way evaluate them as to whether they meet these standards on day 1 when they start? And does that determine whether they go into remedial?
You take part 1, I'll take part 2.
Okay, well,
Let me just start, because that's a really great way. We all want to.
Yeah.
So the first point to make is that states, including Illinois, have had education standards in place, academic standards, K to 12, that have driven everything from development of curriculum locally to teacher professional development and training to assessments. So this is not new. What's new is a set of expectations that were developed with the end goal in mind of readiness for college and careers, and that were jointly developed across multiple states to try to capitalize on the incredible talent and wealth of information that existed across the country. So now you have Illinois and over 40 other states transitioning to these new expectations, the Common Core, in elementary, middle, and high school. It is shaping decisions about curriculum locally. The education marketplace is paying attention, and it's changing the curricular products that they develop. Assessment, very importantly, is shifting as well. So most states are moving away from their state assessments that they had in each of the grades, elementary through high school, to a common set of assessments, student assessments, based on the standards. In your case, you're part of the PARC consortium, the Partnership for the Assessment of Readiness for College and Careers. There is another consortium as well of states. There's 2 big consortia of states that join together to develop new student assessments that are going to be used to measure student performance grade by grade up until the end of high school, or 11th grade. Again, those are much different. They're higher quality assessments. They're performance-based. They're computer-based. They're emphasizing skills and knowledge that, again, are derived from this question of what does it take to be college and career ready, that sometimes hadn't been measured before or hadn't been measured well on standardized testing systems. So it's really a next generation of better assessments that states are moving toward. Literally this coming school year, they'll be given to all students in participating states. And then very importantly, at the high school level, the partnership with higher education has been designed so that the high school assessments are an indicator of college readiness, which you didn't have in place other than assessments like ACT and SAT. You didn't have a statewide testing program that had a college-ready anchor at the top. So you will have that college readiness score. All students will get those scores, parents, students, and institutions. And the hope is that you can figure out a way in Illinois to use that new information to help more students get college and career ready before they leave K-12. And you have a much better prepared student body entering your institutions. And that will require a lot of other work besides just having standards and a testing system. But that's the really important anchor. So that's my explanation.
Then do the higher education institutions have access to this data for incoming students, and what do they do with it?
That's a very good question, and yes, because the assessment scores in grades 3 through 11 are going to generate 5 levels of performance, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And when we look at the Algebra 2, which is the signal for college and career ready in mathematics, and the end of 11th grade English, language arts, students who score a 5 or a 4 are going to be considered on track to be college ready. It could be placed directly into entry-level credit-bearing courses at your colleges and universities without the need of reassessing whether they've mastered the skills and the content. Students who score a 1 and a 2 are really scoring very low, that are going to need some additional support when they go into the college and university, just as they do now. And students who score a 3, when we get through the standard setting and the validation studies, we suspect some of those are going to be college ready and some of those will not be. That's part of the standard setting. So your colleges and universities are basically going to get a 1-digit score, which is going to feed into the student information system that simply says this student has a 5, this student has a 4. We know we can place them directly into our entry-level general education types of courses upon entry. We don't need to place them in any type of remedial programs. The students who score a 1 and a 2, the institution knows, just as they do now from other assessments that they use for placement. And do remember, this is a placement assessment. This is not a tool for admission to determine the admissibility of a student. But once you've admitted the student, are they able to demonstrate proficiency to go directly into those entry-level credit-bearing courses, or do they need remediation? I think there's a, if I may, this is very important in higher education. In terms of about 8 different ways, but I want to summarize for you very quickly. The extent to which we in higher, and I say we because I spent 42 years in higher education administration with the state of California, California State University, and in charge of all of these activities. But when we receive better prepared students at higher education, it does several different things, particularly from a public accountability of higher education. But focusing first of all on the student who comes better prepared, and it relates to 2 of your initiatives today in terms of affordability and closing the gap. The student who comes better prepared through this process, and Chris was absolutely right, and Matt, it's what happens with the information in grades 3 through 11. The teachers and the schools are going to know which students are on track, which students are not. And those students who are not, the heart and soul of this whole assessment system, from my perspective, and we did something similarly in California some years ago, is using that information to provide some additional supports to the student to keep them on track. So when they reach us, to the extent that they come to our colleges and universities better prepared, it has several implications. First of all, you're going to have a reduction in the need for remediation. Remediation will never go away, but a significant reduction. It's going to allow your faculty to an opportunity to increase the academic rigor of their entry-level general education courses, which most faculty will tell you over the years the rigor has not maintained where it should be, and this is an opportunity to do it. Most importantly, from my perspective, in terms of the closing the gap, the extent to which students are more fully prepared when they come in, they're going to move through more quickly. They're not going to need a year or a year and a half of remediation to move forward, which increases the cost, by the way, which increases their student loans, which reduces their Pell Grant eligibility. Until 3 years ago, I was also chair of the Congressional Advisory Committee on Student Financial Aid, having been appointed by 2 secretaries of education. And that's always a concern, too. So this protects the student's eligibility. We also know that students who require remediation between the first and the second year, there's a high degree of attrition. Those kids disappear. They don't go back to community colleges. They don't go anywhere. We're not sure where they go. They drop out. And these are largely your students who are underrepresented, underserved, and low income. This closes that gap because students better prepared are not going to need remediation, they're going to move through. And if you carry this throughout, it's going to shorten the time to degree for the institutions, it's going to increase a more educated workforce that is going to meet the needs of the employers in the state of Illinois. And college and universities need to recognize, and this is something that we don't talk about yet, but I do, it increases capacity at the front end. You are going to be able to enroll over time more students that you cannot currently enroll because of limited capacity. When you shorten the time to degree and you move through students through more effectively, you open up slots earlier in the pipeline at the first-time freshman, at the upper division transfer, or lower division transfer, wherever that intersection is between the 2 and the 4-year colleges in the state. So these are all vitally important, but it's mostly what it does for the student. Remember, students who drop out have had student loans, and if they don't complete their program, they're still obligated to pay the student loans, but they don't have the income necessary to handle the debt service. And that's what you're hearing about a lot of students nationally who can't complete the degree, or they exceed the period of time and they've got huge indebtedness, or they've used up their Pell Grant eligibility because of the additional non-baccalaureate level work they're required to take. I will posit and tell you very clearly that from my perspective, in 44 years now in higher education, I see this as the single opportunity for us really to do what's best for students and do what's best for K-12 and higher education to support students. And if we don't do it this time, I don't see it happening in my lifetime.
You know,
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. I was just going to point out that 65, the vast majority of students, of our underrepresented students, do go into, in Illinois, go into developmental education. And as Allison pointed out, we're working to redesign that to make it more effective, but for the most part, it's not a good thing. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that's okay. So I want to go, I have 2 questions / comments going back to Dr. Cook's, one of Dr. Cook's and Mr. Jones's discussion. So on the, you talked a lot about how programs of teacher preparation will have to change, but it also makes me think all other faculty who are typically not trained as educators, but in their content area, you know, biochemists, whatever they do, how are they going to be supported to teach this sort of different incoming class and do a little bit of the similar things that we do in K-12 to address those needs? What's being done for the existing faculty across? And then my other question is, while I was going to ask that question, are those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5s going to be used for admissions? And you said no. How will we make sure they're not used for admissions? How will we protect, you know, against that as being a factor?
Well, if I could address the second question, then I'll let you guys address the first. We've used ACT for a long time. It's used for college readiness assessments. We've used OccuPlacer and Compass for placement. Those have never been used as an admissions decision. So I don't think the institute, we just had this conversation with the presidents. I mean, admissions is a very multidimensional, complex thing. So I'm not sure I'm too concerned that they'll start using PARCC for admissions. The main thing we're concerned about is that it be used as a signal for readiness from a placement perspective. But the other issue, I don't know if you guys want to, somebody wants to respond to the other question. Yeah, how faculty writ large, how are we going to help them address? Here come these more prepared, problem-oriented, critically thinking students. How are we going to help our faculty be ready for those students since they haven't been probably treating them
or
well?
not, if you get the 1s and the 2s, maybe not, right? So, not necessarily, so.
Right, so, and we've had, in some of our invitations, we've invited both the teacher prep and content area folks to come together. And I know that's not always a natural act within institutions, and largely this will be up to the leadership of the institution as to what and how they want to do that versus something the state's going to mandate. But I think we do see institutions responding to that and thinking differently about teacher preparation, and those in particular who have feedback loops to newly minted teachers who are out in the field who come back and say, this is what I really need. By the way, we also know induction and mentoring is incredibly important. Even though the state hasn't funded it well, we've always asked for it, but those are incredibly important acts to support teachers who come into situations of working with a number of students.
Right.
And could I mention at the higher education level for just a second, too?
Yeah.
One of the things I've been recommending as I've been going around the PARCC states and higher education, I've had this conversation with both consortia. When you come to higher education, our higher education faculty, particularly those who are teaching the general education courses, need to start to, and Tennessee, for instance, has been doing this, and a couple of other states. The time has come for your university faculty to start aligning those entry-level courses, the typical general education courses, with the Common Core state standards in preparation of receiving students who have gone through and had the benefit of instruction in the standards that are reflected in the Common Core. So that's number one, realigning the courses that we're teaching at the university level to reflect. Secondly, students, if you look at the assessment model, that's going to be occurring in grades 3 through 11. There's a performance base. Students are going to be starting as early as 3rd grade all the way through, having to write essays. It's not a summary of what I did on my summer vacation, but even a 3rd grader is going to need to read 2 or 3 passages, construct an essay, point to the evidence of the position that they're taking and construct that, and then through the speaking and listening as we advance through, have to defend that orally as well as in writing. The same types of skills that we expect students when they hit the university or college level, whether it's a 2-year, 4-year, 6-month, 18-month, 12-month certificate, it makes no difference. These are the scores, or going directly into the workforce, for that matter, directly out of high school. These are the skills they need. So the faculty are going to need to look at how they assess students. The standard multiple choice or standard type of some of the instructional assessment modes that we use in higher education may no longer be appropriate and may no longer work for these students who are coming in with an entirely different experience of how they have to demonstrate the mastery of those content standards. So there's a lot that we can be doing. Lastly, the faculty on your colleges and universities, because of the teacher preparation issue, have to work very closely. Your entry-level faculty in English language arts and mathematics, and frankly across the curriculum, need to be in close conversation with your School of Education and the faculty within the School of Education. Because the students who come in as your 1st and 2nd year students receive their foundation in that content area in your general education courses. And many of those students move on to become teachers and start taking the pedagogy necessary to be certified as a teacher. So there has to be a connection on your campuses. When I say you, I'm generic, all of the states that we're talking about. But there has to be a connection between your entry-level faculty as well as your School of Education faculty to understand and to do some type of real soul searching in terms of the content area, how that translates into the instructional mode.
If I know we're running out of time, so, but okay, we have another question. Okay, I want to get to Mary's point about what can this board do. I want to ask that to you all soon, but go ahead with another question.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Right now, we can go to the Illinois report card online and look at every K through 12 district in Illinois and see its scores on a variety of tests. Will we be able to do the same thing with the Common Core standards?
Yes, yes. In fact, you should know our report card just won a national award as being, from parents and researchers, as the most accessible report card with the best information. So we have the P20 Council, which the Board of Higher Ed also participates on, has given a lot of guidance into the report card, and it's going to be evolving with additional metrics over time.
Is there a report card out now?
Yes. But with this test hasn't been given, the new test we've given. This was the last year of the administration of ISAT and the PSAE. So that's those are the scores that are available. We haven't given this except in field testing. In Illinois, we did have a lot of school districts participate in the field testing, but we haven't given this yet.
So the current Illinois report card doesn't reflect the Common Core standards?
Well, we did revise the assessments to align, but it's not based on this new assessment, no.
So let me, I know I'd like, the question was raised earlier and I want to build on that. So you have the Illinois Board of Higher Education and we talked with the president. So if you were trying to suggest to this board and to this agency, what are the most important things, and Kathy, I include you in this in terms of helping with the work that you're doing, what are the most important things that we could be involved in to support the success of this what I think many of us view as, someone said, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to finally get this K-12 to higher ed thing right. What would be most useful?
Well, from a business standpoint, I would argue that all of our children are in a pipeline that starts actually before they go to school, but clear through some level of post-secondary. We know that that's where the jobs are. So the alignment between higher ed and K-12 and the workforce is critically important, and knowing on each end of the spectrum what is necessary to be successful at each level, I think is very important. The business community, I believe, has gotten better. We still have work to do in defining the skills necessary in order to be able to be ready for entry-level jobs, and I think that's something that we continue to work on and need to work on with higher ed. And I also think that higher ed needs to help and support the efforts that K-12 are making. So I think on both ends of the spectrum, for higher ed just to be aware of where the skills are and what the skills are needed to be successful at all levels is very important.
You want me to add to that? Or you just want to go down? Specifically, we haven't talked about it, but explore more opportunities for dual admission, concurrent enrollment, the possibility of partnering with higher education and K-12 to offer remediation in 12th grade. If you know at the end of 11th grade that students are not on track and are going to need some additional supports, develop other supports and interventions that help those students strengthen those skills while they're still in high school, before they graduate and before they move into the workforce or colleges or universities. And also, to the extent that we can, encourage each of your college and universities to develop a leadership team that consists of the provost, the dean of the School of Language, School of Education, English Language Arts, Mathematics, and your faculty leadership to become actively engaged in this initiative.
Great list. All right, I'll repeat a few of them, but I would start with take an active role in this work with Chris and the K-12 community. Help lead it and guide it and get involved enough that you feel confident that it's going to bring what you need. A lot of the things we just talked about. I think in other states we're seeing higher education get more actively involved, so it becomes part of their own work and draw those connections that Allison was just talking about. And then in other states they're just watching and sitting back and waiting. And I firmly believe it's the states where higher education takes a leadership role in partnership with K-12 where this will ultimately be more successful and where you will feel better about the results as a higher education community. What might that look like? I think you could get very engaged this coming year in the process to set the standards for these high school assessments. So you can be very supportive, involved in shaping what it means to be college ready. Again, you'd have to work to get more people involved. There's already involvement of some people, but you could expand that involvement and take a real leadership role in defining what it means to be college ready. Two, I fully agree with AJ about the student supports piece. You could make it a priority to make sure that the information that comes from these new assessments is used to support students while they're still in high school so that more of them arrive prepared. So you could partner with the K-12 community, much like I was hearing partnerships from the president of this institution with K-12 to build bridge courses in the senior year, to make sure the senior year of high school is used to get more and more students ready. And there are some models of that around the country that you could look at under development. Third, you can help the public understand why this is so important. It's a very lonely battle for Chris and the K-12 community to sort of push the standards up without folks in the business community and the higher education community helping to pull along and say, this is what we need. It's important. It's worth the hard work and the extra effort. And I think as you see the results of the assessments come out for the first year, that next spring or summer, whenever the results come out, this is going to be a higher bar. It's going to be a higher expectation. So you should assume that the scores will go down compared to your previous assessments. And I think you want to get out ahead of that together, K-12, higher ed, business community, and others, so folks know why this is so important, so that's not a surprise, and that so it's really received as about helping the kids and the educators do their jobs better. There are other things, the teacher preparation, I'm sure Chris can speak to, and others that are critically important, but I would just list those and mainly say help take a more active leadership role, because I think it will be to everyone's benefit if you do.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty comprehensive list that you have there. I think, helping, we enjoy a great relationship with Dr. Applegate and the Community College Board. Karen's here with the Community College Board, Terry. I think those relationships are very important, and on the P20 Council. Last year we took an action of raising the cut score on our elementary test, in part in preparation for Park, because so many parents were going to see that their students weren't meeting standards, and they were going to ask the question, gee, I thought my student was doing better than they really are. And many adults came to me and said, why are you making us look bad? in K-12. And I said, wait, this is about the learner, the K-12 learner. We have an obligation to be honest about their performance, how their performance is in a global economy against the highest performing nations in the world. We can't be afraid of that. We've got to take it head on and be honest about it. We helped devise communications to parents, to principals. We survived it. And I told school districts, blame me, send them to me, we'll talk to them. We help with those communications. We're going to need your help with that too as we implement PARC. Because when you set a higher bar, it is controversial. And not everybody initially makes it, but we can help everyone better understand why we're doing it, that the K-12 learner is paramount of importance. One thing we haven't mentioned here is you live in a state with a lot of local school districts. We are very unique in having elementary school districts and high school districts. Watch President Dunn's face when I mention this. There's no logical reason for that, right? And so we have feeder high school districts coming, 17 elementary school districts, kids coming in. Some have had algebra in 8th grade, some haven't. High schools are taking all those students in, trying to mash it together. These standards help articulate that for the student, for the parents, in setting a clear message and helping them sequentially get better. That's our goal. And so we, again, appreciate very much the time to be here and to answer some questions. We're happy to come back. I'm happy to come back. These guys are from out of state.
We're happy to come back.
I'm in state, so again, thank you for the opportunity. Greatly appreciate it.
Well, I just say I do believe, I think there are a number of things that we can do as a board in terms of working with our institutions to work with the PARC assessment. That's a way to become more transparent and communicate what college ready means. When I talk to high school teachers and K-12 folk around the state, they said most of them want to get their kids college ready. They don't know what that means. It seems to mean something different in this part of the state than that part of the state, than over here, than in Chicago, than downstate. You can't teach to invisible standards. So what is it we're really trying to get students to know and be able to do? The senior year was mentioned. I think we can begin to convene conversations once this PARC assessment in the junior year. I used the phrase, use the senior year. I stole this from Ken Ender at Harper College for speed up or catch up. So if a student's scoring into 1 or 2, why would we not create collaboratively with our high schools language arts and math courses in the senior year that are rigorous and designed to get them to readiness while it's still free and while they don't have to go into the Bermuda Triangle of developmental ed and never reappear? If they're already in the junior year, why wouldn't we work aggressively, as we are already, but double down on dual credit and AP opportunities from the university so that those students can get college credits because they've already demonstrated they're ready? I think there are a number of things on the teacher preparation side. I think we can begin to facilitate. It's all last I checked, the board has never given an education degree in its history, but we can facilitate conversations among our deans of education and others around in the state around what will it take. We have some good examples already in institutions. So we'll be coming to you with some ideas, but I wanted you to hear from these folks. And it is, I think I sent you the brief 6-pager on that. When you look at some of those examples of the kinds of things that students are being asked to do, the 3rd grade essay was mentioned. This is a very different ball game. And so I think we're going to have an opportunity here to create a new ladder. Let's face it, our current system is completely unfair. I mean, I don't know if you bother to read my blog, but my Reproduction of Privilege blog. But our current system, the way it works, ensures that we throw the majority of people of color and low-income people off the train before they ever get to college or succeed in college. That's what we're doing now. And this is a system designed to try to fix that. And as Kathy made the point, think of that as talent. That's the way I think about it. That's talent we're throwing off the boat. And we just don't have enough excess talent to afford to do that. So sometimes I think new ideas like Common Core get held to all kinds of standards because they're innovative and they're new. The old way of doing things, doesn't get held to the same standards. So yes, we need to be concerned that we're targeting the needs of low income and students of color with this new assessment and all of that. But my goodness, I don't know how we can do much worse than we've been doing. So I hope we'll find a way to support Chris and the work that's going on, and thank you all for being here and being a part of this conversation. I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was a great discussion. Thank you. We'll next turn to program reviews. Dr. Cullen.
I don't have a microphone up there. Okay, Madam Chairwoman, before I do the program approvals, I will do the tally count. We have included in the memo a listing of all pending academic programs and all authorization proposals submitted to the board through July 23rd. Since then, 2 additional proposals have been received. No applications have been withdrawn since the last board meeting, and as of Friday, August 1st, there were 12 new requests for program modifications in addition to the 55 reported in the memo. Madam Chairwoman, item 10 requests approval of 18 associate degree programs to be offered at 15 community colleges. The degree programs included in this item have been approved by the Illinois Community College Board. I now offer this item for consideration.
For clarification, is there a request from the board to list these out, or any questions or discussion for these as a group? Seeing no questions or discussion, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Madam Chairwoman, item 11 requests approval of 2 requests for associate degree programs, 8 baccalaureate degree programs, and 3 graduate degree programs at 5 independent institutions. I now offer this item for consideration.
Any discussion or questions?
Concern, and I've raised this before with another institution, but it doesn't make sense to me for us to approve programs that are training teachers or school counselors in Illinois, asking them to get certification in Missouri. And that really is what Lindenwood is doing. I would like to see some kind of an arrangement where these students get joint certification with one application, but it doesn't make sense to me to ask a student, an Illinois student, to go to Missouri to get certified to come back to Illinois. And this has occurred with at least one other institution.
Any other discussion or questions?
Oh, if there's no other comment, I do have. There have been some proprietary institutions that have closed. I know they do teach out programs so we can keep track of students, I suppose, who are in the process. But I'm a little bit worried about the students who may drop out before the institution closes, who have a lot of debt, and I don't know how they can get back ever into a track to get their degree. And, you know, I mean, I'm concerned that there are going to be students who just drop off the education planet, and they're left with a lot of debt, and they're not going to escape it.
Well, Edison, let me ask you, in a situation as you described, and the school went out of business and they just kind of dropped off, if they decided to continue on at another school, another university or college or what have you, in most cases, their credits that they earned at the first institution would be accepted by the second, wouldn't they, or am I mistaken?
Well, if the student may owe money to the closing school, they're not probably going to release a transcript.
Right.
So Edison, so I understand, your concern is that we do require teach-out programs to help when institutions, Dan can help me with this, when institutions close, to show how they're going to help the students finish out the program. But you're concerned about students who may not finish that program and what happens to them. They don't have the credential. What happens to them in terms of the credits and degrees? I don't know what the answer to the question is.
Well, it's always a tricky situation when an institution closes, and you know, you mentioned for-profits. We did experience a not-for-profit that's based in Kentucky recently that shut down in some state of crisis, which had some operations in Illinois, and we work with the institution and the accreditors and with other entities that are interest parties on as orderly a shutdown as possible, but it's a disruption, certainly. The best we can do in that situation is demand an adequate teach-out plan that gives students time to complete, work with the other institutions on accepting those students as transfer as much as can be done, and work with accreditors on flexibility with working with their regulations around those students. So, you know, we do what we can. It's difficult. We have the least leverage ever when a school is shutting down because they don't need our authority to operate anymore. They're terminating. But we do what we can. And we do address that in the administrative rules.
Do these students post bonds at all? Or, I mean, the schools post bonds?
Our private business and vocational schools, our non-degree schools, are required to post bonds. Our degree-granting institutions are not required to post bonds, but we do have, we use a federal financial stability measure to make sure that institutions that are not financially stable are not eligible to operate.
Any other questions or discussion?
Madam Chairwoman, to the gentleman's first question relative, how does that get treated? The clarification he sought relative to the Missouri issue, I'm wondering what happens.
I'm not
This
sure.
is Lindenwood, the program that is preparing students to teach in Missouri.
Well, we have representatives from the institution who can come up and address the board if you'd like to hear from them.
I'm uncomfortable with moving forward in the absence of an explanation, so either you answer it
Sure.
or we have the institution step
Well,
forward.
and I'll invite them to come up and they can speak more clearly about the program. I'll just mention that when the staff analysts were working with these proposals, the concern was certainly part of the review process that these programs are preparing students for educator certification in Missouri as opposed to teacher licensure in Illinois. But the programs were determined to meet the rules that we work with, our administrative rules.
So noted, but I'd like to hear from the institution.
Sure. Do you introduce yourself?
Madam Chairperson, ladies and gentlemen of the IBHE Board, my name is Dr. Jerry Bladdock, and I'm the president of the Lindenwood University Belleville campus. I think before I answer your question, I need to draw a little clearer picture of who and what Lindenwood University is. Lindenwood University is a private, comprehensive liberal arts university with its main campus in St. Charles, Missouri. Where the Belleville campus is located, it's just 20 minutes from downtown St. Louis. 50% of our students are from the state of Missouri. Therefore, a number of those students come to our campus to experience a small liberal arts intercollegiate athletic program as well as a comprehensive academic program, and then take their education back to the state of Missouri where they originated from. In addition to that, a large number of our students are from out of state, Florida, Texas, Arizona, to name three, where we receive a large number of out-of-state students. Those out-of-state students have a reciprocal program with the state of Missouri that recognize our teacher certification. So hence, that is our real request. Thank you.
That clarify? Is that?
Well, what happens with the Illinois students? And I don't know what percentage of the other 50% are Illinois students, and I don't really have I'm just worried about students having to go through two certification processes.
Does Illinois, Missouri have reciprocity? Okay.
Hi, I'm Dr. Steve Cease. I'm the Division Chair for Education and Counseling at the Belleville campus of Lindenwood. We have students who, let me back up for just a moment. We, as Illinoisans, which I am, are always interested in getting people to come and live and work in our state. And every day we have people unrelated to the university who move to Illinois from Kentucky or Washington or wherever, and they may want to be teachers. So they bring with them their teacher credentials from their state. Those then are submitted to Springfield. Most often now, they have to take 4 additional classes. Upon taking those 4 classes, they receive their Illinois certification. That's now what we are doing with the Missouri students who come to Illinois, go to college at Belleville, and then decide they get their Missouri certification, thereby allowing them to transfer that to Illinois once they fulfill the Illinois requirements, which again are sometimes 2 and usually 4 classes. To meet this goal, we have created those 4 new classes that Illinois wanted us to create. We have had those approved, and those are now the classes that Missouri students who get that certification, if they decide, I want to be an Illinois teacher, you have to do this. And then that's what they are doing, and they're being very successful with that. But there could be a student who comes from any place outside of the other 49 states, and they have to do whatever they have to do to get their certification within the state. It hasn't been an issue for us. Hope that helps.
Well, what happens to the Illinois student who goes through, gets
They do, that's what they do. They're going to get their Missouri certification as their initial certification, and then they'll take those 4 classes to get their Illinois.
So they have to come back and take 4
Yeah.
classes.
What percentage of your students at the Belleville campus are Illinois students? Something that
Of the entire campus, I wouldn't know.
Of the education program that happens.
The education program, we probably have about, I'm not exactly sure, but I'd say probably 30%.
Why not put in the catalog what those 4 classes are and inform the student right up front?
What we have in the catalog, because we have students from all over the nation, there's a paragraph in there telling them that they need to find out by working with us in our education division what their state requires. Because as Dr. Bladdock said, it may be a student from Texas. And so we try to help, so we help the Illinois students specifically with those classes. As a matter of fact, we've hired a part-time person that now is coming in, and that's all he does is work with the Illinois students for certification to make sure they're on track and able to do this.
Sorry, if I want to make sure I understand. So
Sure.
you are asking permission for this degree, the requirements of which mandate or require the student to meet what the requirements are in Missouri. And that is 4 classes short of what they need for a certificate in Illinois. Is that right? But you do also offer the 4 additional classes they would need if they were to go on for their Illinois certificate.
Yes, that's correct. And one of the degrees is a non-certification class. It's called Educational Studies. And that class, there is no, you don't get a teacher's certificate with that class. So that or with that degree. So that particular course doesn't even, there is no certification. They get it, they get the degree, and they get the degree. It doesn't lead to teaching.
Are there courses that are required to get the certification in Missouri that are not required in Illinois? And I guess what I'm saying is you're saying that if you go through your program, you get certified in Missouri, you have to come to Illinois and take four classes. Are there some and presumably these 4 are required in Illinois. Are there some that are required in Missouri that are not in Illinois, where maybe the student, while he's in school, he or she is in school, could end up with the same number of credit hours and not have to take 4 more courses worth of credit hours and then be eligible just to apply in Illinois?
There are 2 elective slots, and they can fulfill 2 of those, but not all 4 of those. And again, it hasn't been an issue with students.
Any other questions?
I just have a question of clarification to the answer you just gave. So even with the 2 electives that someone who wants to get the certification in Illinois needs to take 2 additional classes beyond what's required to get the degree in order to be able to be certified in Illinois, is that correct?
Yes. Yes. And Dr. Bladdock just made a very good point. Those classes can be taken as a part of the graduate school, so they can begin working on their master's degree and take those classes. We have those classes both at the undergraduate and the graduate level, which several students have chosen to do right away, is just to go right into their master's, and they can take those classes as part of the elective program in their Master's of Education.
And you said 30% of the students at this campus for this program are from Illinois?
Yes, that's my
Roughly.
guesstimate.
Okay.
Board Member Langer?
Where in the catalog is the certification caveat placed? Is it prominently placed?
Yes, sir, it is. I believe that it's placed directly in the education section of the catalog for the degree requirements.
You wouldn't happen to have a copy of the catalog with you?
No, I wouldn't. We could pull it up online.
Any other questions or discussion? Thank you. So we are currently discussing item 11, the new operating and degree granting authority for independent institutions, which includes 4 not-for-profit and 1 for-profit. Is there a desire to separate those out, or is there a motion to approve?
Should probably be separated.
I think for, given the discussion, we'll go ahead and address those individually.
I think that's right, Chairman, because it's a bit difficult to move it forward in the absence of separation.
Okay, so would you like me to read through all the,
So you want to discuss the, right?
the list of programs or the list of schools, or how would you like to separate them out?
Let's see, why don't we do it by school? Start with by school and we can break it down more.
Well, the Lindenwood University Belleville campus programs are the first. There's,
So on that item, on Lindenwood, is there a desire to break it down further? Any discussion or additional questions on that item?
Well, one program is not a certification program, which is the educational studies. The others are.
So is there a desire to further break that down? Yeah, why don't we go ahead and do that?
well, the first program is a Bachelor of Arts in Educational Studies in the Southwestern region.
Any discussion or questions? If not, is there a motion to approve? Is there a second?
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries.
Okay, Bachelor of Arts in English with secondary education certification in the Southwestern region.
Any discussion or questions? Is there a motion to approve?
Clarification, Chairman.
Sure.
Is that the one that has the particular problem?
This is the item that was discussed and has had concern. Yes. Is there a motion?
Madam Chairman, can we have a roll call vote on that one?
Yeah.
A roll call has been requested. And I'm still looking for a motion.
Move approval.
Is there a second? All, and a roll call has been requested.
Bergman,
No.
Boots Anderson,
No.
Garate,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Langer,
No.
Nanding,
Abstain.
Richardson Lowry, Rivera,
No.
Alario,
No.
Woodward,
No.
Anderson,
Present. Just one moment for a question.
Montessori are private institutions.
Can I ask Secretary of the Board, Deach, to read the vote totals?
7 no, 2 yes, 2 abstain.
So the motion to approve fails. Is there a motion to postpone for reconsideration at a future meeting?
Well, I would move that. I think it needs resolution. And I don't know how to resolve it, but it needs to be, we need a resolution on this. I mean, this is essentially an out-of-state institution with a significant presence in state, and we're treating it as an out-of-state institution when, in fact, it really is kind of an in-state institution. And we need a way to resolve this, okay?
Okay.
I mean, I'm convinced that the quality's there. Doesn't make sense to treat our students that way.
Maybe if we had some more clarity on tuition, or, are those students paying more tuition to take additional courses? Maybe that would help some of the board members. What is the impact on those students who have to take those 4 additional courses?
Okay.
What is the negative impact and how do you ameliorate it? I understand that community. I've spent a lot of time down there, so I know it's really like literally across the border, and East St. Louis and Belleville and Missouri, it's all, so from my perspective, I kind of get that, but I understand the issues around.
So
What is
I think
the penalty, what is the burden on the Illinois students to take those 4 courses, and maybe if they could ameliorate that or explain it better, it might help the board members.
I think some important questions and concerns have been raised, and I think we'll continue to discuss those and work with you, the board will, and the staff. I don't believe that we need a motion to continue to have that discussion, correct? Am I correct that we don't? Okay. And we have additional items for this institution, and can you clarify, they're also certification programs?
No, well, the next one is not, the Masters of Arts in Counseling with emphasis in school counseling.
Okay.
That's a certification program. You cannot be a school counselor in this, Illinois without being certified.
Is that the same thing?
I'm not certain.
Well, if it was marriage and
We can-
family counseling, it's not an issue, but if it's school counseling, it is.
And why don't we, the second, so this is the first remaining, and then we have 2 remaining items for this institution, correct? And the
Right.
second, could you just clarify?
The educational specialist in educational administration in the Southwest region. Is that a certification program?
Why don't you come on back up and speak into the microphone? No problem.
The EDS program does not require the 4 additional courses. That was for the elementary education. The EDS program is they complete their degree, they take their Missouri test to get their Missouri certification, they take their Illinois test to get their Illinois certification. No additional courses.
Okay, why don't you stay up just in case there are
Okay.
questions?
And yes, counseling has to be certified, yes.
And do they need additional courses?
No, their courses are completely the same. They have to take the Illinois test.
No additional courses.
No, the 4 courses are only for the history program. I'm sorry, English.
Okay, so on this third item, is it correct? Is that the third? Am I off on my count? Third. Are there any questions, discussion? So on this one item, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second? Seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. And now we have one more item, so stay on up in
Sure.
case there are questions.
Okay, the final item for the Lindenwood University Belleville campus is the educational specialist in educational administration in the southwestern region.
That's the one I just...
Which we just mentioned. Any questions or concerns? Discussion? Is there a motion to approve? Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
May I make one additional comment?
Sure.
That perhaps should have been clarified at the beginning? In elementary ed, we already have the program which has been approved by you and the 4 additional classes. That's something we've been doing for a year and a half. So the English that we're asking you to approve is exactly the same as what was already approved previous with the elementary education program. Does that make sense? Okay. We already have approved by you elementary education, and with that are the 4 additional courses. That's been approved. That's been going on. And now we're asking for the English, secondary English,
Without the 4 additional.
and that will include those same 4 courses as elementary has already had, which was already approved by you previously.
Well, that's different than what we just discussed.
We had talked a few minutes ago about looking into this and talking further. Perhaps this is something to consider at a future meeting.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
We'll move on to the final items of, oh, we're ready to move on to 12. Moving on to,
Well, with the addition, with the remaining independent institution programs, do you want to break those out individually or do the rest as a
there
group?
a request to break those down or to approve? If not, we'll approve as a group. Seeing no requests, are there any discussion, is there any discussion or any questions?
The only question I have, Madam Chairwoman, is whether or not we have a similar issue with any of that grouping.
No.
No. Okay, very good.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Motion carries. Moving on to item 11,
Item 12.
or 12, sorry.
That's okay. Madam Chairwoman, item 12 requests approval of 2 baccalaureate degree programs at 2 public universities. I now offer this item for consideration.
Any questions or discussion?
Move approval.
There's a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Motion carries. Thank you, Dr. Cullen. We'll next move on to the consent agenda, which includes the board meeting minutes from June 3rd, the fiscal year 2014 financial report as of June 30th, public university non-instructional capital project approval, which I believe is one item for Northern Illinois University, the general grants fiscal year 2015 allocation, and item 17, Grow Your Own Teacher Education Initiative Fiscal Year 2015 allocation. Is there any discussion or questions about any of the items on the consent agenda?
Madam Chairwoman, since I was not a participant in any of the above, I would like to abstain for the record because I'm not informed.
So noted.
Thank you.
Any other discussion or questions on the consent agenda? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve? There is a motion to approve items 13 through 17 on the consent agenda. Is there a second? All in favor? Opposed? The consent agenda is approved. We'll next move on to information items. I'll just note that there was a legislative update distributed, also a fiscal year 2015 appropriations for higher education, governor's action. And I'd really encourage all of you, if you haven't had a chance, to take a look at item 20, setting a context for fiscal year 2016 budget development. Our budget challenges continue to grow, and we're talking about how we can best approach the budget for the higher ed system as a whole in Illinois in a more strategic way. And this provides a very important context, I think, as we prepare to move forward. Any questions about the information items or discussion?
A couple of questions. One, performance funding, where do we see that?
Performance funding will be a part, we've already scheduled the budget meetings with the institutions in the fall, and that'll be integrated in, that will not be separate discussions, that will be a part of the ongoing budget discussion in the fall, and all those meetings with the institutions have been scheduled.
And then, on the setting, what's it called? Well, setting the framework for the 2016 budget, there's a lot of data there, and, you know, I gotta find it. I'm struck by a couple of things. First off, the income fund has grown $500 million from 2008 to present. And that's because our budget is really decreasing. And when you look at from 2002 to 2014 or 15, higher ed budget is decreased in inflation-adjusted dollars, 34 or 5%. I mean, that's huge. We're spending 35% less in inflation-adjusted dollars in 2015 than we did in 2002. And then you wonder why tuition is increasing. I want to point that out. MAP funding. In 2002, 68% of the MAP applicants got money. In 2015, 37%. The money, the total pot is about the same. MAP, the actual MAP dollars that go to students has gone up just a fraction, a couple $100. We have 350,000 MAP applicants. If we had kept the same percentage of funding, 67 or 8 or 9% that we did in 2002 to the present, we would be funding 110 to 20,000 more students. And we're talking about graduating more students, yet we're not addressing it on that end. So there's a lot of data there. There needs to be about 5 or 6 salient points about it. But that MAP funding is incredible.
Yeah, I would agree. I think as we talk about getting serious about setting goals and moving forward, we're going to have to talk, yes, we have to talk about institutional activity, but, to what you just said, Addison, I mean, one of the charts that we presented to the legislature in the last session showing that in 1998, nearly 7 out of every $10 of the cost of a degree at our public universities was paid for by the state. It was public funding for a public good. In 2000, I think it was 12, Al can correct me if I'm wrong, it was about $4. So again, and of course we know who picked up the bulk of that burden in terms of paying for it. So I think you raised really good issues, and we're going to have serious conversations in Illinois about everybody's role and responsibility in stepping up to the plate if we're going to have the kind of success we're talking about. It's got to be all of our partners involved.
Sorry, can I?
Go ahead.
Yes. And I guess I would just say on the MAP funding discussion, the Illinois Community College Board worked very hard to make some changes that would ameliorate a little bit of the discrepancy of how MAP is figured out for community college students, and we were not successful in that. So I would like to continue to say we need to keep thinking about that and how we work through that, even though we had a task force and talked a lot about, how that formula is figured out. That continues to be a problem.
The Affordability Committee is talking about just that subject, and I can't speak for the convener, but I would say if you or someone from your entity would like to join that committee, they'd be welcome to do so.
That would be lovely.
Any other discussion? Jim?
Well, I was going to say, I think when we think about financial aid policy and financial aid, and Kim isn't here, but obviously ISAC has a huge role to play here, but I think we need to think about, obviously we've got to restore the decline in the buying power and the funding of MAP. So the governor's proposal to double MAP makes complete sense given where we've gone. But we also need to have a conversation around how we do distribution of MAP. What are the smart ways to maximize the impact of financial aid on student success? There's a lot of innovations going on around the country right now. For example, in addition to the issues that you raised, are there ways to apportion the funds so that students get more financial aid if they hit certain momentum points that we know predict student success? And studies have shown that, in fact, when you do that, when you tell a student, here's your financial aid level, if you hit certain key points, like 15 credit hours your first year, you get a bump in your financial aid. Guess what? Many more students hit the 15-hour credit mark. So I think we have the opportunity here to continue to advocate for dramatic increases, restoration, I should say, in the MAP funding, while talking about more of what we're learning about how this kind of funding better serves students, better gets them to a degree, better serves adult students. I mean, there's a whole set of conversations that we need to have around that as well, to make sure whatever money we do put in has maximum impact on student success.
Any other questions or discussion? Then we'll see no public comment. Any other matters? Then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. But first, before I do that, the next board meeting will be October 7th at Loyola University in Chicago. Our featured guest will be the community college presidents. Now, is there a motion to adjourn?
Move.
Second? All in favor? We are adjourned. See you in October. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I have to go to that one, because that's my alma mater. Well, you got through your first year. You have to tell Alexi that he has to make me go. Where are you guys meeting on Lakeshore campus?